sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Long time no see. Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. I hope you've had a great Thanksgiving break or whatever you call it, where you're from. I hope you got a chance to spend time with your friends and family. I know I did. It was a great time. And now we are back into the craziness of politics and news. And we have some crazy stories tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We will do call in tonight after the show, so stay tuned for that. I'm pretty sure you guys would want to chat after you hear tonight's stories. So let's go ahead and give shout outs to everyone in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. What's going on? Osun says, hey, Sabby. Hello, Osun. How are you? Greetings, Byron. Let's assume the world stops trading with us altogether, drops the dollar, and adopts BRICS. Then what? We have to make our own shit here from our own materials and sell it to our own selves. You know what, Brian? I'm going to star this one right here, your message, because I want to come back to that when I get to the Trump tariff story, because that is incredibly important. Like, we don't produce much in this country. So I'm holding on to that. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Hey, Sabby, I know you heard about the martial law in South Korea. I know it's coming to America soon. SMH, hide your kids, hide your wife. LOL. Have a great show, Sabby, and free Palestine, Congo, and Sudan. Yes, I am discussing that story tonight. So we actually have 5 stories. What happened in South Korea earlier today, actually last night as well, was crazy and wild, but it is a warning of what could be to come. So we want to make sure we're talking about power and control, which is the theme of tonight's show. Greetings, Samad says, Sabby Sabs, NATO is leading a coup in Georgia. That's Georgia, the country, people, right now to open a second front on Russia. The anti-Russia propaganda on social media right now is insanity. Help. Yes, it is getting crazy out there. Unfortunately, a lot of people believe it. A lot of people believe that Russia is this big, bad boogeyman. And this is not to say that Russia is perfect. They're not. No country is. But the narrative that has been portrayed on mainly corporate media is astounding. And unfortunately, a lot of people do believe it. It's crazy times, folks. Shout out to Dr. Darnell. If President Biden wants to have a positive ending legacy, he should pardon all those inmates who were affected by the 1994 crime bill. Senator Sanders should run as a Green Party member. I agree with you, Darnell. Or Dr. Barnett. Yes, I covered the Biden pardon. I created a separate video for that and uploaded that yesterday. But we are going to talk a little bit about that tonight when we get to the Whoopi story, because I agree 100%. You know, it's not fair to pardon your son, but to not pardon the people that were victims of his crime bill. So I agree 100%. Not sure about Bernie running through the Green Party. That'll never happen. Just FYI, he's very much a part of the same system that he complains about. But he is trying to, I guess, bring up corporate money. We're going to get into that tonight about Bernie Sanders splitting the Democratic Party. So stay tuned for that story. Shout out to I Know Myself, says Barry Saturo. We see you hiding behind that tree. What's up, Gigi? Hi, Sabby. I'm looking forward to another live. I liked Whoopi better in Sister Act and Ghost. So did I. I liked Whoopi better as an actress, and I love the Sister Act movies. I know them by heart, and I think that's where Whoopi was best at, not with politics. What's up, Kill Your Gorgers, says tacos. That's right. It's Taco Tuesday, folks. Greetings, COM. I'm a Black woman who suffered, and I believe he retaliated against me by having my name added illegal federal government watch list. Can you email me your story? Because when you put it in a live chat like this, it's harder to piece it all together. If you can just email me, my email address is located in the details tab of all my videos. Yeah, a lot of crazy things have been happening. Shout out to Lauren, says free Palestine. Greetings to my comrade JB, says good evening, everyone. Whoopi defending Biden is funny because if it were reversed, she would say two wrongs don't make a right. But she's a partisan, so she's playing the red-blue game. It's interesting, too. In 2020, Whoopi said that she was an independent, but she's obviously very much, aligned with the Democratic Party. Greetings, Hannah G says, Whoopi be tripping. Yes, she do. Shout out to Sabby, says, oh no, not Bernie again. I know Bernie's been making a lot of news, right? Greetings, Mark says, Sabby. What's up, Mark? Shout out to Zen Soulful, says, good evening, everyone. Shout out to William. Hunter knows where the bodies are buried. That's why Joe needed to pardon him. Greetings, James says, good evening, B1. What's up, James? Shout out to David, says, hey, all. Greetings, Benny says, hi. Shout out to New York Varsity, says, let's go. Chatting tonight. Can't wait. That's right. Call in after the show tonight. Greetings, all one same. Make it a great day, everyone. Shout out to Kimmy, says, hi, Sabby chatters. And greetings, Dre Harden says, Sabby for president 2028. Not me. I don't think that's my place. Like, I kind of know where I fit, and they would never allow me. They would never allow me in any political office. God knows. And once I start talking, they'll be like, that's it. Get her out of here. Get her out. Greetings, EMK says, yeet, yeet. Shout out to C. Shata says, A Sabs. Greetings, Skylar says, here we go. Shout out to Angie says, hello, everyone. And greetings, Crumb says, happy Taco Tuesday, Sabby. That's right. Tacos in the house. And greetings, Jan says, liked from Oakland, California. Well, Oakland is in the house. There's a lot of people from California that watch the show. I've noticed that. A lot of people from Cali. Yes, New York Varsity says Sabby would need extra Secret Service. Yeah. They probably wouldn't even let it get to that point. They would just say, you got to go. You cannot participate in this race. You're saying too much. It might upset, the powers that be. But we have quite a bit to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you around here. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Thank you guys. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Don't forget about them. They're pretty cool peeps too. And there's also Sabbies. Yeah, I say they're the meat of the sandwich, fam. The meat of the sandwich. There it is. And if you're a vegetarian, maybe the portobello mushroom of the sandwich. And of course, we also have members. Shout out to the members, fam. Thank you guys so much for your support. All of their names are listed here, and you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I want to give a special shout out to the newbies, new patrons. Let's give it up for Jess Galvin, Donald King, and Jesse Gollop. Thank you all so much. Really do appreciate your support. You're keeping the lights on around me. So, ladies and gentlemen, I told you we have so much to discuss tonight. Crazy stories out there. Let's go ahead and get into that beautiful thumbnail. Here we go. Roll that beautiful bean footage. Dun, dun, dun. We actually have 5 stories. So FYI, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing, can't believe it happened, but it did. George Clooney snitches on Barack Obama. Uh-oh. Apparently, it is now fine. More people are coming out to criticize Barack Obama, but now snitching on Barack Obama. I guess George Clooney says, I represent Hollywood, not this politics, fam. Not this politics. We're going to get into that story. That is very interesting. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump threatens tariffs on BRICS. We're going to cover that story, and I'm going to explain to you how this would impact us here in the United States, right? So what do I tell you? Foreign policy and domestic policy are connected. These are not separate entities. So we're going to get into that. We're also going to discuss Bernie Sanders splitting the Democratic Party. That look on Bernie's face is hilarious, but there are some things, some rumblings that are happening within the Democratic Party, and is being led by Bernie Sanders, and he has managed to pull some of these politicians to his side. So things are crazy. Democratic Party is facing an identity crisis. And I don't really think that what Bernie is trying to do is going to make them move in a different direction. We'll get into all of that and the reason why. We're also going to discuss Whoopi Goldberg defends Biden. Whoopi has lost her damn mind. I agree with the commenter earlier that Whoopi probably was better off in the Sister Act movies and Ghost, stand-up comedy, that type of thing, not in politics. You are going to see how Whoopi Goldberg and some other members of The View are trying to actually change the definition of the word lie in order to appease the Democratic Party. We're going to get into that. And we also have a bonus story, ladies and gentlemen. South Korea's president invoked martial law, which has just been overturned. We're going to get into that story as well. I told you it is a crazy night around here, folks. We have so much to discuss. So let's get into it. Bum, bum, bum. If you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash that like button. Start us off right. If you're a newbie, don't be afraid to like, sub, and share. Yeah. Okie dokie. Yes, we have a theme for tonight's show. Tonight's theme is power and control. You can see that on the chalkboard behind me here. And it applies to every story that we are discussing tonight. I'll explain to you why when we get to each one. The very first story I want to get into tonight is what happened in South Korea. Now, this is insane, but again, this definitely fits the definition of power and control. So, more recent update. The president of South Korea just reversed martial law that he declared earlier today. So we're going to talk about the reversal, and then we're going to get into what happened with his crazy ass earlier today. So it says here from Reuters, South Korea's President Yoon reverses martial law after lawmakers defy him. Yes, he did. He did. Let's get into all of this. Here, it says South Korea President Yoon said on Wednesday he would lift a surprise martial law declaration he had imposed just hours before, backing down in a standoff with Parliament, which roundly rejected his attempt to ban political activity and censor the media. And this is a key point here that I do want to highlight: censoring the media. Because this is one of the dangerous things that President Yoon did earlier today. Now, I want to say this. First of all, martial law is something that is declared under a state of emergency, like is usually an emergency reason as to why you would invoke martial law. The last time I believe this happened in South Korea was in the early 1980s. So it hasn't happened for a couple of decades. What you are going to see is how President Yoon not only used his power to control the people, but he also used that power to invoke martial law during a time when there wasn't an actual emergency. He did this because of political disagreement. Let's go ahead and get into this clip here from CNN. This was earlier this morning. South Korean president declares martial law. Check this out.
The South Korean president declaring martial law in a late-night TV address. CNN's Mike Valerio joining us now from Seoul. Mike, I know the detail pretty sketchy at this point. What do we know?
Well, we have disturbing details that are just crossing the Reuters wire, Becky, as our colleagues and team of journalists are sorting through what this means. Reuters reporting at this hour that all media in South Korea are coming under the control of martial law command in South Korea. What that means for us here at CNN, unclear. Our bureau's broadcasting from the heart of Seoul, South Korea. But protesters, according to information that is just coming into our bureau here, are being told by law enforcement that they can be arrested without any warrant in this new chapter of martial law that has begun just about an hour and a half ago. So to bring our viewers up to speed, what exactly we're dealing with here, the president of South Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol, comes on TV in an unannounced address to the nation and says, Becky, because of what he described as elements of government that are, from his view, sympathetic to North Korea, to communist forces, because of those things and others, he is declaring martial law for the first time since this country has been ruled by military dictatorship in the 1980s. Now,
let's go ahead and chime in here. So what you need to know about President Yoon is that he is incredibly unpopular. I believe his approval rating is around 17%. So this is not someone that is well liked among South Koreans. And then there's the issue with the parliament, right? So check this out. President Yoon apparently is not happy with the parliament because they are not moving politically in a way that he wants them to move. They're not passing, I guess, policy issues that he wants passed. So he came up with this theory that, the parliament in South Korea must be infiltrated by North Korea. He just came up with this on his own. No proof, no evidence. But because the parliament is not moving in a way that he wants them to on key political issues that he's behind, he decides they must be infiltrated because there's no other reason why they could vote against these things other than the fact that they just don't approve of those policies. But also the fact that, again, he is not liked. So he decided to take power into his own hands and invoke martial law. This is incredibly dangerous, and it could happen in other countries as well. It could happen here. This is why I wanted to get this story out here. Incredibly dangerous how the president of a country, because he did not like the way the parliament was voting on key policy issues, he decided to invoke martial law to get his way. Now, of course, the parliament, they heavily pushed back on this. They said hell to the no. And so after he received so much pushback, he decided to very recently, to reverse that decision. But he had lost his damn mind. And I'm going to show you just how far he went with this martial law order.
Now, we are trying to sort through what this means for democracy in this bastion of democratic rule in East Asia. I live about just a couple minutes away from where we're broadcasting from. There are police, Becky, who are on their phones, calling their captains, calling their colleagues, asking, what are they to do? What does this mean? What is going on in the building that I live in? And when you're just walking through the streets, there are people who are running to their families' homes to be with them, to figure out what to do to be close to loved ones in this moment that is unprecedented in so many of our memories. So Yoon Suk-yeol, the president of South Korea, did not lay out what specifically he wants to do with these martial law provisions. We're waiting for some sort of text that outlines what powers he says he will have. But from the information that is trickling out, the leader of the Democratic opposition party, Lee Jae-myung, is saying, there's no way this can fly. And be paraphrasing what he's saying as we're taking in all this information, Becky. This is.
Let me pause here for a second. Gus is spot on. He said 100K American troops are stationed in South Korea. This is true. Many, many years ago, when I was in high school, my dad was stationed in South Korea by himself. Right. So for South Korea, the family, I don't know how it is today, but back then the families could not go. So you couldn't take your kids with you. But my dad was stationed there for a year and then he came back to the States. But this is true. So everyone pay attention to that.
An illegal move, Lee Jae-myung, the opposition leader, says, and this has to be canceled. So lawmakers are streaming to parliament, but we are also seeing reports of activity at parliament being declared illegal as well, because of these martial law regulations that apparently have come into effect. So to say that this is unsettling would absolutely be the understatement of the evening here at 11:42 p.m. local time on a Tuesday night. There are whole multitudes of people across the city who are stunned and are trying to figure out how an unpopular president made this move and what is going to happen next and what this means for democracy here in South Korea, Becky.
So when you hear Democrats complain and say we have to protect democracy here in the United States, this is nothing compared to what's happening in South Korea, right? So the Democrats are like, we got to protect democracy so that people can continue to support the Democratic Party, right? And then they're always referring back to January 6th, and we sat there and we watched those videos over and over again where we watch police officers just let the people walk right through. So that's what they're referring to. But you have this situation in South Korea where actual democracy really was threatened because the president decided to override the parliament because he didn't like the way that they were voting. And he decided to invoke martial law. That's insane. It's insane. If you guys have been watching on social media, if you've been following the story, people were just like, holy crap. And there's something I want to bring up here from The Guardian, because I think this is important. South Korea gripped by uncertainty as MPs defied president's declaration of martial law. And I want to get into just some of the things that he did. I mean, granted, it was very short-lived, but still, let's talk about what he did. So it goes on to say here that President Yoon declared martial law in the late night televised address on Tuesday. Amid his dispute with opposition parties, he accused of pro-North Korean sympathies and anti-state activities. Now, why is this important to those of us in the U.S.? How is this, these pro-North Korean sympathies, anti-state activities, that kind of sounds similar to some of the criticism and attacks that activists have received in this country, where it's corporate media or the U.S. government referring to them as Putin puppets or Kremlin propagandists. Let's think about what happened to Amali Yeshitela and the Huru 3. How the Justice Department came after them. So I want you to think about this in terms of how we would feel in the United States and how it's being used in that way with us. While he's referring to it as pro-North Korean sympathies, how many times have you heard corporate media or the DOJ refer to Americans as, pro-Kremlin puppets or Putin puppets and things like that? So that's something to pay attention to. Now, it goes on to say, I want to tell you some of the things that happened here. It said in the early hours of Wednesday morning, there were no signs of South Korean society. Accustomed to decades of democracy complying with the rules, local media reported on the protests and the political developments, while Korean Confederation of Trade Unions and the Federation of Korean Trade Unions called emergency meetings to discuss going on strike. Hundreds of protesters had earlier gathered outside the National Assembly building. Again, they're protesting against the president there. It goes on to say the crowd in Seoul cheered when the National Assembly voted to reject his decree and called for Yoon's arrest, chanting abolish martial law, oppose martial law. So you can see here, we can't play all the videos because you guys know how YouTube can be. But this is the people, fighting back and speaking out against what the president was trying to do. And this is what I said before with us here in the US. There are a number of times like we protest, we're on the ground, etc. It's crazy how quickly he reversed that decision after he received the backlash from the people. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., we've been protesting for over a year for Gaza. We've protested during the George Floyd protests, whether it's BLM or other groups as well, for months at a time. There were protests for Breonna Joy Gray. And you see that our government wasn't willing to change their position. They weren't willing to, they virtue signal, but they weren't willing to actually change what they do. And that's because, again, money runs Congress. and money runs the White House here in this country. But I noticed in other countries, in some other countries, it seems to be that when the people rise up and the people say, hell no, get out of here with that mess, it seems like the presidents have a way of retreating. We saw this about a year ago in Sri Lanka, where Sri Lankans rose up against, their leader, and they actually drove this guy out of his house, and he got onto a plane and left the country. So this just goes to show you again how money has a hold on politicians in this country, and that's why they really don't answer to the people. Now, I want to go to this clip here from Medea Benjamin, because she had a good little, speech here. And she is explaining again how dangerous this was. And you guys got to pay attention. What happened in South Korea could also happen here, regardless who's president. Like people are saying, well, Donald Trump, It could happen regardless who's president. Listen to this.
There is an incredible crisis unfolding right now in South Korea, where the President Yoon has declared martial law, meaning there could be no political activities, no protests, the media under state control. And he said it's to protect the country from North Korean communist forces, but it's really to protect him, a very unpopular president whose approval rating is now down to 17%, from the liberal opposition who controls the National Assembly. The National Assembly, despite police trying to block them, got into the Parliament building and voted 190-0 to lift the martial law. By law in South Korea, if there is a majority vote in the National Assembly, the martial law has to be lifted. So now we will see, will this very unpopular, corrupt president obey what the National Assembly has said? Will the U.S., which loves this corrupt president because he has been an ally with them in the militarization of the Pacific, will they denounce the martial law? And the most important thing, will the people of South Korea, who are already courageously standing up and going to the Parliament building, being confronted by the police, will they be able to protect their democracy? So this is a time for us to all stand with the people of South Korea as they shout, no martial law, protect the democracy in South Korea.
That's right. And Medea is 100% spot on. It was to protect himself. He was looking out for himself. So this is a perfect example of someone using their power and abusing their power to try to control the people. Now, one of the things I thought about, if you're like me and you like a little bit of K-pop every now and then, I like some K-pop. I like me a little bit of BTS. I like a little bit of old school EXO, EXO, but the old school one, not the new group. I thought to myself, what does that mean for K-pop artists in South Korea? And I think you'll find this interesting as well. Listen to this. This is another thing that happened because of the martial law. It says South Korea declares martial law, freezes K-pop events in an unprecedented crackdown. But it's not even just about freezing the events. This was important. This part here, it says that the martial law declaration authorizes the military to enforce curfews, censor communication, and suppress gatherings deemed subversive. Government officials defended the action as a necessary step to counter what they described as an unprecedented domestic threat. Now, an immediate cultural freeze. K-pop artists silenced. One of the most visible effects of the martial law has been its chilling impact on South Korea's global acclaimed K-pop industry. With millions of fans worldwide, K-pop is often touted as a symbol of South Korea's cultural renaissance and soft power. However, the industry now finds itself at the center of a crackdown. Let me tell you what they told them that they could not do. It said here that they were urging artists to cancel appearances and to refrain from attending public events. Get this, avoid political commentary. So they told the K-pop artists that they couldn't comment about it. That's censorship. And for those who are not aware, in South Korea, K-pop is huge. Like it's like a big, BTS is known worldwide, but In South Korea, K-pop is huge. So imagine that like shutting down. It said that prominent acts like BTS, Blackpink, and Twice have already suspended upcoming concerts and fan meetings. So just think about that for a second, because let me tell you something. I don't know if you guys are aware or if you ever met any serious K-pop fans. Yes, Tim, it's like Swifties. Yes, it is. K-pop fans don't mess around. K-pop fans will have your ass if you cancel their shows. So just imagine the outcry over that. But the censorship is what people should be pointing their fingers at, telling them that they cannot, comment. They can't talk about it. Why not? Why not? I mean, musicians in the United States were able to comment and talk about Gaza. They expressed whether or not they supported Gaza. They expressed whether or not they supported Israel. They were allowed to do that, but he told them they couldn't even talk about it. So what we can learn from what we saw with South Korea today is how dangerous it can be sometimes. In particular, when someone who's in a position of power abuses that power and tries to use it to have control over the people, especially over something like this, over political differences. And this was not a state of emergency. Crazy times, folks, crazy times. So I wonder if he's going to be impeached. He reversed the decision, but his approval rating is 17%. And he declared the martial law today. So I wonder if they're going to try to impeach him next. We'll have to wait and see. Have to wait and see. All right, let's go to some of the comments here. James, Netflix Hellbound series, fire. Yeah, that's another thing. Like South Korea has really good shows. I have never seen a show or a movie made in South Korea that was bad. Never. And I don't know, some people, I know some of you guys, you told me before you don't like reading subtitles. I get it. You kind of got to be in the mood for that. But South Korea, their shows and their movies are fire. Hellbound is lit. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you watch it. That's a good one. James knows what's up. Thank you for the super chat, JB. Sabs, I'll be having on a North Korea expert on to give the facts about the country next week. I'll be asking him about what happened in South Korea. Oh, good one, JB. You guys make sure you're following JB as well. That's my comrade from RBN. Make sure you're following his channel. It's called JB Font. JB had a really good conversation today with Jason Call. PC said, I expect a lot of invented emergencies under Trump. Y'all be ready. Yeah, I mean, and it can happen under anybody. This is the thing. But you're right. Everybody needs to be ready. What happened in South Korea can happen here too. Thank you, Hussein. America is heading into a depression by January 2029. I'm surprised it's that far out because I would have assumed sooner than that. But people better get ready. I keep telling you, get ready. Thank you for the super sticker, Black Progress Network. Thank you. Thanks, Kevin Wayne. Patrick Lancaster had the update on Parliament voting down martial law, beat most of MSM. Yeah, actually, I think the first person I saw that shared that story, I believe I want to say it was it Dave DeCamp? I think it was Dave DeCamp, who's independent media. Thank you, Devotion Orange says, keep shining, Sabby. Thank you. Joey Peltier in the house says 80 plus cop cities are there for when martial law gets placed in the American colonies. Why do you guys think they're building all these cop cities? They're getting ready for it. Victor says the Sri Lankans was all in the president's refrigerator and swimming pool. They kicked him out of his house. They said, this is our house now. Thank you for the super sticker, James Sparks. And thank you, N-N-A. Sabby, I think you mean Breonna Taylor. Yes. Sorry for, I think I said Breonna. I forgot what I said, but thank you. Yes. And thank you, New York Varsity. According to Wikipedia, they have free speech, but any speech that favors North Korea can be punished. Rare, but it is there. There you go. Crazy times, folks. Crazy times. Yes, Ruthie. Oh, yeah. Hellbound, Train to Busan, and Uncanny Counter are just a few Korean series that are awesome. Yes. Train to Busan is awesome, especially if you like zombie like shows. Train to Busan is based. Yeah. Everyone should watch Parasite. I say start with that one. If you're interested in a movie about or a show or a movie about class struggle, start with Parasite. That should be your introduction to South Korean films or shows. Parasite is the one. Start with that one and then go from there. Because one of the things that South Korean entertainment industry, one of the things they address constantly, I've noticed, is class. Yep. Yeah, David said Parasite won awards. I know. Yeah, it did. Yeah, that was a good one. That's a good one. Good one. Okay. All right, guys, go ahead and smash that like button. Thank you so much. Helps me with the algo. And we're moving on to our next story, ladies and gentlemen. Again, power and control. If you have not heard this story, you're going to hear it now. It's wild, but I'm going to tell you how it can affect us here in the United States. Donald Trump recently made an announcement that if the BRICS nations decide to move away from the US dollar and pursue their own currency, that he will implement tariffs on those countries. Now, this is where I say to people who tell me foreign policy is not important. This is another example that foreign policy can affect us here in the United States directly. And I'm going to break down why. First and foremost, who is a part of BRICS? Let's go ahead and pull up the website here because I want people to see. You can go to the BRICS portal, right? There we go. Bam. So we can see who's a part of BRICS here. And that is the original countries. It's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and go over here and see. Actually, I'm trying to go to, where was I before? Here we go. Better that way. This is BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Now, why was BRICS formed in the first damn place? Because these countries decided that they wanted to have a multipolar world. They were tired of being under the thumb of the United States. And you can't fault them for that. Some of these countries you're going to see later on as well have had sanctions put on them by the United States government. So that's important as well. You can't keep putting sanctions on people and then you're going to be like, no, you got to continue to use our dollar. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. But these countries in particular, they are what forms BRICS. So you have Lula, you have Vladimir Putin, you have Modi, you have Xi Jinping, and you have Cyril Ramaphosa from South Africa there. Now, there are other countries that have joined BRICS since, and there are other countries that have been invited to join BRICS. But these are the key people here. Thus, this is how you get the word BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. I, for one, would like a multipolar world. I don't like the idea of the United States government having domination over other countries. I don't like the United States government policing the entire world. I think, if anything, we should be working together with other countries and not just the ones that we consider to be our allies, right? Because there's going to come a time, and I've said this before, especially when it comes to the climate issue, that is a global issue. That's not just a U.S. issue or a West issue. There's going to come a time when all of these countries are going to have to work together for the greater good of the people globally. Now, I say this because Donald Trump is threatening those nations that I just showed you. He's going to implement tariffs on them if they move away from the U.S. dollar. Let's go ahead and bring in this clip here from One. We haven't seen One in a while. Let's start with them.
U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has warned BRICS member countries over attempts to undercut the U.S. dollar. Trump threatened to impose a 100% tariff on the BRICS group nations if they did not commit to not creating a new currency or supporting another currency that will replace the United States dollar. The statement comes after a BRICS summit held last month in Kazan, Russia, where the countries discussed boosting non-dollar transactions and strengthening local currencies. Trump issued the 100% tariff warning in his latest post on social media platform Truth Social, adding that if BRICS do not make the commitment, they should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful U.S. economy. Trump has vowed to pursue a protectionist agenda, threatening hefty tariffs on neighbors and rivals.
Let's go back here just a little bit. I want you to see his statement here. The idea that BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar, or they will face 100% tariffs and should expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful US economy. They can go find another sucker. Okay. There is no chance that BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, and any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. So, first of all, we don't produce much here. You know, people can point to a company like Ford and say, well, Ford makes cars in the US. Where did the parts come from? A lot of the auto parts are not coming from the United States. We don't really produce anything. Yeah. So this is going to impact all of us. We're talking about a country like China, which is also a part of BRICS. Are you kidding me? How does the United States function without China when a lot of our goods comes from China? When's the last time you bought something that said made in America? Think about that for a second. So just keep that in mind. We don't produce a lot here. At one point we did. At one point we had a lot of factories in this country that employed a lot of people. Detroit was one of those cities, right? Pittsburgh. Don't forget about all that part of the Rust Belt. At one point in time we did. But you know what happened? CEOs became greedy. They realized that they could get parts from other countries for a cheaper price. And they realized, you know what? I can get the work done with less people and I can keep more money. So not a good idea. Not a good idea. Yikes.
Protectionist agenda, threatening hefty tariffs on neighbors and rivals. Trump said there was no chance that BRICS will replace the US dollar in international trade, adding that any country that tries should wave goodbye to America. He further said they can go find another.
So that's what's happening now, folks. Of course, Donald Trump is not in office yet, but I did want to bring this to you guys' attention because I do want you to understand how we will be impacted as a country. And then I'm going to break down this whole myth about this free market is so great and capitalism is wonderful, because this is a perfect example of this. Now, first and foremost, they are already saying, the Kremlin is saying that this is not going to be good. It will backfire. Kremlin says Trump's threat to BRICS nations over the US dollar will backfire. So they're already responding. It says here, the Kremlin said on Monday that any US attempt to compel countries to use the dollar would backfire after U.S. President-elect Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs on BRICS countries if they created their own currency. It goes on to say the BRIC grouping initially included Brazil, Russia, India, China, but has since expanded to take in other countries. The grouping does not have a common currency, but long-running discussions on the subject have gained some momentum after the West imposed sanctions on Russia over Ukraine. Now, here we go. The sanctions. So here's again, you can't sit up here and sanction these countries and then tell them, oh yeah, and by the way, you have to continue to use our currency. The fuck? Really? I don't think so. No. So it goes on to say, When asked about Trump's comments, the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry said the dollar was losing its appeal as a reserve currency for many countries. A trend, he said, was gathering pace. More and more countries are switching to the use of national currencies in their trade and foreign economic activities. If Washington resorted to economic force to compel countries to use the dollar, it would backfire. If the U.S. uses force, as they say, economic force, to compel countries to use the dollar, it will further strengthen the trend of switching to national currencies in international trade. The dollar is beginning to lose its appeal as a reserve currency for a number of countries. So this is a warning that is coming from Russia to let people know, try this if you want to, but other countries may follow us with this. Other countries may also decide, you know what? I don't want to fuck with the US dollar anymore either. I'm getting kind of tired of them telling me what to do. Kind of getting tired of it. And they put sanctions on us. So I'm getting tired of it. And the reality is, if they're not using the US dollar, how can the US government continue to put sanctions on them? Oh, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. It's about the economy. It's about the top 10 economies in the world, which I want you to see. And I want you to understand why the US is breaking down. And by the way, I don't think that this would just happen under Donald Trump either. I believe that if Joe Biden were still the nominee, or Kamala Harris or whatever, if they would have won re-election, they would put pressure on BRICS as well, because they don't want countries to move away from the US dollar. Now, check this out. The top 25 economies in the world, we're just going to look at the top 10 here. Let's pull up our little chart. Bam. Number 1 is the US. But look who's right behind the US. This is according to GDP, by the way. China. Now you see why the US is so threatened by China. China is right behind us. Germany, Japan, they're fine with them. Germany's an ally. But then India. So India is in the top 5. India and China are both a part of BRICS. So Russia may not be in the top 10, but you have 2 countries that are a part of BRICS that are. So let's talk about capitalism for a second. Because what bothers me is when I hear people say that they support free market, they support capitalism, but you want to stop other countries from embracing that free market, from embracing that capitalism. Because what really is happening here is that this government, the US government that supports capitalism and supports free market, they support it for us. They also support the US government always being on top. They want the United States to be at the top. They don't want China to pass the US. They don't want India to move further up. Don't get it twisted. They may say nice things about India, but they don't want you to move up either. So are they really for free market? I thought it was supposed to be about competition. I thought that those who say they support free market are for healthy competition. But this shows you they're not really for healthy competition. They still want to remain on top. So it's just like you can compete, but you can't win. Let me give you an example for my sports peeps in the chat, my sports buddies. Let's say I should use a team that's really bad. Who's a team that's really bad? A football team that's really, really bad. We'll go with, I think the Dolphins still suck. We'll go with the Dolphins. The Browns. Yes, let's go with the Browns. Who said it? Yes, we'll go with the Browns. Okay. That's like the NFL telling the Cleveland Browns, you can play and you can continue to play as much as you want to, but you're never supposed to win. You guys suck, and you're supposed to continue to suck. And you can win a couple of games every now and then, but you can't win the Super Bowl. It sounds ridiculous, right? Although the Browns ain't winning no Super Bowl. Let's just keep it real. But it sounds ridiculous. Same thing with the Jets. Someone said the Jets. Same thing, the Jets. So it's like, I'm allowing you to play, but I don't want you to win. I don't want you to be first place. That is never supposed to happen. I like using the sports one because it's an easier one to refer to. But that's really what it's about. So are they really for a free market? Are they really for fair competition? You can play a little bit, but you're never supposed to become number one. We're supposed to have the number one spot. You're never supposed to overtake that. If you look at who is a part of BRICS now, like I said, more countries are joining. More countries. So you can see here, it said that Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE were invited to become members effective January 1st, 2024. Saudi Arabian government minister said in mid-January it had not joined yet, but I think Saudi Arabia is still entertaining this idea. You know, I told you they'd be fair weather friends. Saudi Arabia, but like, we buddies for right now, but I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to last. It goes on to say, why does BRICS matter? And this is the part that everybody needs to take note of. BRICS countries include major world powers such as China and Russia, and countries which are influential on their continent, such as South Africa and Brazil. The expanded group has a combined population of about 3.5 billion, or 45% of the world's inhabitants. Combined, members' economies are worth more than 28.5 trillion. That is about 28% of the global economy. Here are their GDPs in trillions. You can see China, 17.96 trillion. This is the breakdown. India, 3.39 trillion. Russia, 2.24 trillion. Brazil, 1.92 trillion. And then you can see Saudi Arabia is yellow here because they were iffy, but 1.92 trillion. Egypt, 0.48 trillion. South Africa, 0.41 trillion. Ethiopia, 0.31 trillion. Iran, 0.39 trillion. The UAE, 0.51 trillion. And here's something else. With Iran, Saudi Arabia, and UAE as members, BRICS countries produce about 44% of the world's crude oil. 44% of the world's crude oil. I would not want to piss off BRICS right now. So these are not just some little rinky-dink. You know what I mean? Like, these countries, they're smart. They knew exactly what they were doing, and you can't fault them for that. You can't. Because when we look at the sanctions, and I'm going to pull this up. Look at the sanctions. Let's go to this category. What category do you want to go to? I think we're going to go to... There's targeted sanctions. That's not the one I wanted. Because those are more specific into people. Human rights abuses and corruptions. U.S. sanctions. Look at the countries they've sanctioned for human rights abuse. Watch this. It's hilarious coming from the United States. So, China. Persons of whom the U.S. government believes are committing genocide against the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. So remember, we have debunked that multiple times. The State Department confirmed there was no way, no evidence to prove that there was a genocide against the Uyghurs in China. But what's funny about this is that the U.S. government will put sanctions on China because of an assumed genocide of the Uyghurs, but they won't put sanctions on Israel. They're quick to tell you, I don't care how many people Israel kills in Gaza or Lebanon or the West Bank. The U.S. government will never turn their back on Israel. They will never sanction Israel. So once again, that tells you the control. That tells you the power and the control. It goes on to say, I want to show you another one. Look who they've sanctioned for terrorism. Watch this. Of course, Iran. Sanctions. Drug trafficking. Who's on this list? Russia. So these are just a few. So I'm showing you countries that are a part of BRICS that have been sanctioned by the U.S. government. So the U.S. government, Donald Trump, is telling them, you got to continue to use the U.S. dollar, but also we can still put sanctions on you. Russia has several sanctions on them right now from the United States government. So if Russia says, okay, that's it, we don't want to use the U.S. dollar anymore, we're still supposed to expect Russia to use the U.S. dollar? No, that is the power and control that the U.S. government has over those countries. As long as you continue to use the U.S. dollar, they can continue to put sanctions on you. It's all about control. That's why they don't want to move. Some of it's economic, yeah, but they want control, power and control. So this is Donald Trump using power and control by threatening BRICS countries that they better not move away from the US dollar. And the more I learn, I got to tell you, the more I learn about foreign policy, I begin to understand why some of these countries respond to the US in the way that they do. I begin to understand why they don't really want to fuck with us. I get it. And it took time. Don't get me wrong. It took time, but I get it. And then there's the issue of Mexico. And this is another warning. I forgot to put this one up there. Let me grab this one really quick. There's another one where he threatened Mexico as well. Let me pull this up. Give me just a second. Because I want people to hear what she said, because she did respond. I know I saw this just a second. 1 second, guys. Got it. Okay. You guys have got to see the response from the president of Mexico, because do you really want to be right now? Remember, we share a border with Mexico. It's just like I don't know what to say. So he threatened Mexico as well. Listen to what Claudia had to say about
between the president-elect of the U.S. and Mexico's president over a phone call. Who agreed to what and what it may mean for the U.S.-Mexico relationship. Donald Trump brought out some of his best words, for example, wonderful, to describe a conversation with Mexico's Claudia Sheinbaum, ending his Truth Social post by claiming she agreed to, quote, stop migration through Mexico and into the United States. Sheinbaum actually just responded moments ago, and the short version is never, no, not once, did she say anything of the kind. Sheinbaum on X was writing, we reiterate that Mexico's position is not to close borders, but to build bridges between governments and between peoples. Joining us in our fifth seat, CNN media correspondent Hadass Gold. But first, we're going to go to Lance on this breaking news, because it does kind of feel familiar from...
And we can pause it there, okay? So just think about that for a second. Because she is saying that her goal is to work with other countries, not work against other countries. She also responded about the tariffs. And I just want to pull that one up. Sorry, guys, I'm a little frazzle-dazzled. Here we go. I want to pull up this one as well so you can see her response about that, because again, you don't want to go pissing off like people are trying to work with the US and it's like you're trying to work against them. Like, I don't understand, again, all about power and control. Listen to what she said about
concerns of a massive trade war between the U.S. and two of its largest trade partners after President-elect Donald Trump said on his first day in office he will, quote, charge Mexico and Canada a 25% tariff on all products coming into the United States and its ridiculous open borders. Trump went on to say the tariff will remain in effect until such time as drugs, in particular fentanyl, and all illegal aliens stop this invasion of our country.
Pause. So do people understand that a lot of the auto parts come from Mexico? This is why when people say, well, we have Ford, we have GM, they're American made with foreign parts. I'm not joking when I say we don't really produce anything here. We don't. When is the time? Next time you go shopping and you buy an item of clothing or shoes or something, look at the tag. Tell me what it say. Tell me if it said made in Mexico, made in Taiwan, made in China. Tell me. Most of us, I'm willing to bet, we don't have most of our clothing is not made in the United States. Willing to bet. We don't make anything.
Well, the fallout pretty much immediate. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum responding to those threats in a letter to Donald Trump, writing, quote, neither threats nor tariffs will solve the issue of migration or drug consumption. As for the markets, U.S. stock markets remain largely unfazed by that announcement from the president-elect. But we are hearing some real concern from the CEO of a trade group that represents dozens of major retailers, including Walmart, Nike, and DSW, saying, quote, such measures would place an unnecessary burden on American families when budgets are already stretched thin. CNN's Vanessa Yurkevich has a look at how this could impact your bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
A trade war is brewing.
We're going to tariff the hell out of them.
The casualty, the American consumer.
We're going to see higher prices.
On his first day in office, President-elect Trump says he's putting a 25% tariff on all imports from Mexico and Canada. China will get hit with an additional 10% tax on top of existing tariffs. The reason, Trump says, incentive for these countries to stop the flow of migrants and illegal drugs coming into the U.S.
I suspect we'll encounter some new headwinds that our industry will have to navigate.
Mexico, Canada, and China are the United States' key trading partners. The U.S. imports the majority of cars and car parts from Mexico, so the price of your car could go up. America's top import from Canada is oil. The tariffs could send gas prices up 25 to 75 cents in some regions. And the U.S. imports a lot of electronics from China, in addition to sneakers, toys, sports equipment, and furniture. For example, China makes a sneaker. A U.S. company buys it, pays the import tariff, and then makes a choice: eat the cost or pass it to you. Before the higher tariffs announced Monday night, Americans could expect to spend $2,600 more each year under Trump's original tariff proposal. Inflation is expected to rise by 1%. U.S. retailers like Steve Madden are already moving production out of China to beat the tariffs and keep prices low for U.S. consumers.
What I tell you, we don't really produce anything here, even Steve Madden. So you see, this is how we would be impacted. So we're talking about, again, higher prices. Prices are high now, but prices would even increase even more with those tariffs as well. And I want to bring up something else. Someone mentioned it in the chat. Trash Panda said Temu. Yeah, a lot of people that shop from Temu or Shein. Temu is very popular, but not just clothing. I'm thinking about the video game industry. I'm thinking about those of you that are gamers. Those of you that love to get the new video games, and I know some of you more so game online, you can chat with people and all that kind of stuff, but I'm thinking about the video game industries. Because again, where are you getting the products from? For people who have gaming PCs, where are you getting those graphic cards from? Are they produced in the United States? Just because they're sold at Target or you see them at Best Buy, that doesn't mean it was made here. This is what I want everybody to understand. I know I got some gamers in the chat. You guys know. Everybody remember how hard or difficult it was during the lockdowns, during the pandemic, to buy a graphics card? They were almost non-existent. So the last thing that we want is higher prices, and they're already high now. We don't want food to increase. We got to eat. We don't want gas prices to go up again, and they will. All of these things will impact us here in the United States. And that's what I want you to understand. So again, foreign policy and domestic policy are directly linked. This is an example of someone like Trump trying to use power to have some sort of control over something that he does not like, and it can impact all of us. Donald Trump is a billionaire. He'll be fine. He can afford to pay higher taxes. He can afford to pay higher prices. But he can't afford to pay higher taxes. He can afford to pay higher prices. But if you are living paycheck to paycheck, you can't. If you are retired, then you're on a fixed income. You can't afford higher prices. This is something people don't think about. When prices increase, those who are retired and living off Social Security, those who are disabled and living off of their disability check, they can't afford to pay higher prices. And the majority of the working class can't either. So think about these things. Power and control. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chats. JB said cell phones. Justo said GTA 6 ain't coming. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, it's a lot. Let's go to the comments over here. Thank you. Thank you. I know myself. Artists in the West are censored by executive Zios. That's true. But they still, I mean, a lot of musicians spoke out, whether it was for one side or the other when it came to Israel. Thank you, Roger. Yes, you said protest for Breonna Joy Gray. I'm sorry. I meant Breonna Taylor. Oh, God. People are going to get me for that one. Sorry. Bridget said, start making stuff at home. Yes, we need to produce things here. We do, but we don't. It's like, and they keep saying manufacturing's coming back to the US, right? But what are we making? What are we producing here, right? So, yeah. Osmond said, Trump thinks that he can bully the world. How delusion this joker is. Thank you, David. Old Boy is another great Korean film. Crazy ending. Yes, that's a good one. The American version, not so much. They shouldn't have remade that. Thank you, Jasmine. I'm so over Trump's idea that these tariffs will stop them. Why does he think BRICS formed in the first place? Exactly. Thank you, Trash Panda. Most goods that are made in the U.S. still use parts from China and Mexico. If this goes down, we are screwed. Telling you, we're gonna have to start taking woodshop class. I'm not playing. Shout out to Velma Thomas for the super chat. Thank you. Thank you, P. Smith, who's been a member for 15 months. Gaddafi was going to mint his own currency and they killed him. They can't kill BRICS. Yeah, it's kind of hard to kill that many countries. Like it just, Gaddafi wanted countries in Africa to move away from their dependency on the West. Hey, you see, they got rid of him. Thank you, Gamble. The U.S. dollar lost 96.8% of its purchasing power since 1913. Why wouldn't the world just move on? IMF been capping for China's yuan since 2016. Thank you, David. Taiwan made parts for PS5, which hurt production when the console launched. This is the result of a global economy when we don't play nice. There you go. And JB says that Trump is doing this because he can't address the real underlying issue, which would piss off his billionaire buddies. There you go. That's right. Connect the dots, folks. It all makes sense. I'll get the comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you, Dave. Thanks to Sabby for this teaching stream, preaching the word. I try. Thank you for the Rumble rant, Unfuck the World. Thanks for all you do, Sabby. Did you know that the current president of Mexico was elected after 36 previous presidential candidates were all assassinated? Yes, I did. Crazy, huh? Yeah, real crazy. I don't know. I tried to say goodbye and I choke. Try to walk away and I stumble. All right, guys, go ahead and smash the like button. Thank you very much. My world crumbles when you are not near. All right, we're moving on to our next story. And I hope I didn't get that song stuck in your head because it gets stuck in mine every now and then. But there's another one. Here's another interesting story. So there seems to be a split that is happening in the Democratic Party, and that is because of Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is now apparently going to some type of war with the Democratic Party, and he's begging them to move away from lobbyists and corporate donors, or else he's basically telling them that they will continue to lose. To move away from big money interest, or they will continue to lose. Now, we're going to talk about power and control, because who controls these parties? It's Wall Street and the military industrial complex. So as long as politicians are bought and paid for, they are not going to move at the will of the people, even though we are the ones that vote for them. So let's get into this. There is a bit of a pull and tug happening within the Democratic Party right now, where some of them are not happy with Bernie Sanders. And then there are some unlikely allies that are deciding to go along with Bernie. Let's get into this, and shout out to Case Study QB for this clip.
Good to be with you. I'm Katie Tur. Democrats are not agreeing right now on a lot. How Kamala Harris lost the election, for instance, why she underperformed everywhere, including the bluest of blue strongholds, why the party keeps losing working class voters, and why they are now losing more of the minority voters. The only thing they do seem to agree on, the party that is the easy part, that there needs to be some change. But how do you affect that change? What exactly do you do? Bernie Sanders argues the next move should be a full-on assault of corporate power and the billionaire class. Senator Chris Murphy largely agrees, arguing that the party needs to rethink support for the neoliberal world order. In other words, the status quo.
Pause. So an unlikely ally to Bernie Sanders, Chris Murphy, of all people, who for the most part is relatively quiet. You don't see him in corporate media quite much, but he has now come out criticizing the Democratic Party for taking corporate money and having this type of donor complex, so to speak. Now, we're going to talk about the BS, because Bernie Sanders and Chris Murphy both know that the Democratic Party is not going to move away from corporate money. So instead of them putting their time in, again, trying to reform the party, their time and energy should be put into a third party and another alternative. Doesn't have to be Green Party, could be any party, but putting their money and their time towards that. They're not going to do that because they still appreciate the system as it is. And what do I mean by that? What I mean is that if you know for years that this party has continued to take corporate money and will continue to take corporate money, if you know that this party has lobby interest groups like AIPAC that have basically bought off most of the politicians in Congress, you know damn well that the Democratic Party overnight is not going to do away with corporate money. Neither is the Republican Party, but I don't see Republican politicians trying to do this. Bernie is. And apparently now he got Chris Murphy on this bandwagon too, right? So what this is yet another attempt by Bernie Sanders to try to reform the Democratic Party. Do not see this as anything else other than that. I see people on social media getting excited about this, and they say, yeah, he's fighting. Bernie has pushed back on the Democratic Party multiple times about this particular issue, but in the end, he tells you to support the candidate that is corporate and corrupt, the same corruption that he told you to push back and fight against. Bernie Sanders is not a part of the solution. Bernie Sanders is a part of the problem. Let's continue with this clip here.
Congressman Seth Moulton says it's a woke culture problem, that the Democrats need to stop policing language and thought. Nancy Pelosi doesn't quite agree. She thinks the loss has a lot more to do with the amount of time VP Kamala Harris had to run. Joe Biden dropped out too late. And now Senator John Fetterman is weighing in, but his message is a bit less dramatic. Wait, he says, and stop freaking out.
John Fetterman also had a message that Israel should not be investigated. So that tells you everything about him and who he is.
Joining us now, Washington Post national editor and MSNBC political analyst Phil Rucker, editor-at-large of the 19th, and MSNBC political contributor Aaron Haynes, and national affairs correspondent with The Nation, John Nichols. Phil, I'm going to begin with you. Part of the first step to figuring out what to do next is electing a party chair, a DNC party chair, the person in charge of all of the races and the messaging party-wide for the country. It was Jamie Harrison of South Carolina. He's no longer going to be running for it. Who are they looking at, and why does it matter so much, this person in this particular position?
Yeah, well, this is an important position in building the infrastructure, which is pretty foundational for any rebirth of the Democratic Party. This will be the person raising money who will be tending to the health and viability of the state Democratic parties all around the country, who would be helping lay the groundwork for the midterm elections in 2026. But this is not necessarily signing on to some new agenda for the whole Democratic Party. Clearly, there'll be presidential candidates over the next 4 years that would be laying out more of a policy agenda to lead the party forward. But a few people are in the mix for DNC chair. Martin O'Malley, the former governor of Maryland, who's been serving in the Biden administration. He ran for president back in 2016. He has expressed interest in running for DNC chair, and there are a number of others in the mix as well. And there's actually some calls for potentially Rahm Emanuel, who you would remember as Obama's first White House chief of staff, a former congressman who led the Democrats to success in 2006. He's most recently been the ambassador to Japan. There are some in the Democratic Party who hope he would lead the party, the DNC.
Pause. So this is what I'm trying to tell you when I say part of the problem and part of the solution. When you look at who controls the party, that's why you get recommendations like Rahm Emanuel, the guy who closed all those schools in Chicago. He's corporate, he's establishment, he comes from the Obama administration. O'Malley, corporate, establishment. So this is why I'm trying to tell you guys that Bernie Sanders is leading you down a dark alley at night, which you are not supposed to go down alone. He's leading you down a dark alley at night, and you think there's light at the end of that alley, and instead you get jumped by the Democratic Party. People need to understand and wake up and see things for what they really are. Yes, we know corporate money needs to get out of electoral politics. I 100% agree with that. The money is a problem. The money's got to go. But if you tell me that the money has to get out of the party, but the party and the people above you are tapping Rahm Emanuel and Mike O'Malley as potential DNC chair peeps, then that right there lets you know that the party is against what you are saying, and they're not going to move in that way. In fact, Bernie Sanders already knows this. This is his way of trying to get whatever is left of his coalition to go alongside the Democratic Party and to think that there's going to be some type of change. This is a game that Bernie is playing. Ask yourself the question, who is in power? Whoever is in power is who has control. So you know the donors are in power. You know Wall Street and the military industrial complex is in power. And as long as that's the case, you know nothing's going to change. But at the same time, Bernie Sanders also knows that the Democratic Party is not going to move away from corporate money. You probably can't find 10 people in Congress that are willing to do that. 2 of the squad members are already, Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman are going to be gone. The AOC, she all over the place. So it's a game. But there is a split here. Because what you're seeing now is you're seeing that Bernie is leading kind of this type of way. And you see Chris Murphy has jumped on board with him. And Dean Phillips, for whatever reason, said on News Nation that he's willing to go work with Donald Trump. People, it's all over the place. The Democratic Party is all over the place right now. And people are losing their shit. They don't know what direction to go in. They don't know what direction to go in to actually win. But they're going to go in the direction of what appeases the donors. That's why Nancy Pelosi is running for re-election again. That's how it works.
See, that is into the future.
Aaron, what do you make of all these differing assessments about what went wrong and what should be addressed first?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there is something to former Speaker Pelosi's point that this was kind of an outlier election in that, you know, Vice President Harris did only have 107 days, which I think probably was the only way that she was going to be the nominee.
Pause. Was 2016 an outlier election too when they lost to Trump in 2016? Was that also an outlier election? Just asking. Just asking. That's all.
You know, given our track record in this country for electing a woman president, but was 107 days enough to elect a woman? I don't know if that was the case. Obviously, we saw that it was not the case in this situation. But I mean, this was still a very close race. Democrats came up short this year. But does that mean necessarily that there needs to be a complete overhaul of the system? I'm not sure that is the case. But I mean, I do think that, you know, in thinking about the next party chair, thinking about how that person works with state Democratic Party chairs is going to be key. I do think a thing that as we're unpacking kind of quote unquote what went wrong in November, so much of the chatter is centered around the National Party and what their support was of those grassroots, of those state groups, and that infrastructure in a way that really would have yielded the turnout result that they needed to win, right? So somebody with the support of folks on the ground and not just folks in Washington could be the person that comes in and makes a difference in the midterms and beyond.
What about you, John? I mean, I know you've...
Let me pause here for a second. So they're still trying to figure out what went wrong, right? Still trying to figure out what went wrong. They don't really want to figure out what went wrong. Rick says leftists can take over the party like MAGA did Republicans. That was just as Democrats. Jamal Bowman recently did an interview with Ronnie Akalik, and he said the Democratic Party can't be reformed. You see where he's at now. That was just as Democrats. That was the mission, was to take over the Democratic Party, and we saw how that went. That's not going to happen. They'll get rid of you before you try to do that. Just like they got rid of Cori Bush, just like they got rid of Jamal Bowman, they'll get rid of you before they even allow that to happen.
Spoken about a bunch to Senator Bernie Sanders about what's going forward. You're also talking to voters on the ground in Wisconsin, a state that Donald Trump won and that Democrats used to be able to very easily rely on.
I'm speaking to you right now from Spring Green, Wisconsin, which is in the southwestern part of the state. It's one of the swingiest parts, not just of Wisconsin, but the United States. And what I can tell you is that when you talk to grassroots Democrats, and I've been in Chicago and Milwaukee and lots of other folks talking to people for a big feature, big article I'm writing on this, they're very resilient. They're ready to fight on, but they're very, very frustrated with the party. I think they would agree strongly with Aaron when Aaron said that 107 days is an incredibly difficult time in which to build a campaign, and that Kamala Harris gave it everything she had, but that the party itself wasn't really ready for this and is not an agile, fluid, frankly, functional party in much of the country. And
the party was ready for Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton had a year. They were ready for her and she still lost, you know?
And so what I'm hearing a lot of is that people want the Democratic Party to be much more in touch with its grassroots, much more populist, much more progressive. I mean, if you talk to grassroots Democrats, that's what you will hear. And then the other thing is that they can't continue to be a 7 or 8 state swing state party, right? That it's got to be a national party. And the reason for that is that if it was a national party, a little bit more energy into building up all of these state parties, there's almost no question they could have won the House of Representatives this year. They didn't win the House, and as a result, they're in a much weaker position than they would have been. So hearing a lot of stuff, but especially a lot of passion for getting resources out to the states, and frankly, getting a much more populist, much more progressive message, similar to what Chris Murphy and Bernie Sanders are talking about.
Well, getting a populist message. And keep this in mind, like I said before, this is not what the donor class wants. The reason why when Bernie ran, there were so many attacks on him is because the donor class was against it. Remember, that wasn't like a billionaire campaign. Bernie was grassroots. Like a lot of those donations were small dollar donations, like $27 donations, right? So keep that in mind. But at the same time, when they want something shut down, they'll shut it down. They don't want a populist message because the donors don't want a populist message. You know, everyone's got to understand that. The reason why you don't see more of these candidates in the Democratic Party running on a populist message is because that's not what their donors want. They don't want them running on Medicare for all. They don't want them running on canceling student loan debt. They don't want them running on increasing the minimum wage. They want them to run a, moderate style, which I would call actually right wing campaign that is going to appease the donor class, not working class people. So I want you to understand how the media also has a hand in this. This is not new information to MSNBC. Anybody with a brain that's looking around can tell that those populist issues actually do well with the people. And the exit polls showed that after 2016 and after 2020, the exit polls showed that. But the media's job is to also parrot the narrative for the donor class as well. So the media did everything that they could to negatively speak about those populist issues. When we talked about Medicare for all, they said they're going to take your health care away. And people fell for that too. That's their role, to go along with what the donor class wants. When I tell you that they sold their soul, they did. So do you really believe that if the next candidate that runs through the Democratic Party, you believe they run on a populist message? Do you really believe that the DNC is going to allow them to become the nominee? No, we went through this. We went through this with Bernie twice. Because that's not what the donors want. They'll rig it at the convention if they have to, just like they did in 2016. So keep in mind, the media is a big part of this. They are also a part of the power and control because they control the narrative.
I think Dan Osborne is an interesting case here. This is the union leader who ran as an independent in Nebraska, almost beat the Republican incumbent, was doing really well for a while, especially in the polling. And I was told that what ended up losing him the race, this is one assessment from a Democratic source, is that the Democratic Party, not the party itself, but the supportive groups of the Democratic Party came in and started funding Dan Osborne. They started making ads for Dan Osborne. And then suddenly he was more associated with the Democratic Party nationally. And that became a problem for him because he wasn't seen as somebody who was an outsider. Why would the Democratic Party nationally have such a bad profile that it could have potentially lost him the race?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've written a lot about Dan. In fact, I spent a day or so with Dan Osborne traveling around Nebraska, and I can tell you that he had a meticulously calculated campaign. His goal was to make sure that people saw him as truly independent. He's very progressive on a lot of labor issues, on quite a few issues, but a little bit more conservative on some other things, and he just didn't want to be the face of the National Democratic Party. This goes way back to when Biden was a candidate, all the way through the campaign. And I think this is one of the deeper things. I've spent an immense amount of time traveling to what are referred to as red states and seeing Democrats come very close, either running as Democrats or sometimes in Osborne's case as an independent, very close to winning, but not quite unlocking that calculus. What people tell me again and again, that part of that calculus is that the national party seems in many cases to be way too tied to Washington. It's not about it's woke or something like that. In fact, you can find plenty of polling data that shows that those aren't really the issues that are moving people, one way or the other. What's really concerning is a sense that Washington itself is broken, that it is, in fact, too tied to corporations, too tied to insiders, and that frankly, the Democrats carried that image, at least in this election. Although, remember, in 2 years, the Democrats won't be in charge, the party that's in charge, and if they get their act together, might be able to run as a much more populist force.
Which they don't want to happen. But he's right when he says they're tied to corporations, they're tied to Wall Street. I would have said that differently. I would have said that Wall Street owns them. Right. So words matter and words have meaning. When you say, oh, they're tied to somebody, that's one thing. But when you say, no, Wall Street owns them, that really, I think, wakes people up a little bit more and shows them the dynamic of that type of relationship. It is not a relationship that is on the same level. It's not. Wall Street owns them. So it's not like a horizontal relationship. We got to be very clear about that. But you'll even see this here in this clip from Case Study QB. They also bring up the donor class. And Michael here is going to try to lie and say that donors don't buy these politicians. Watch this.
So you had Bernie Sanders tweeting on Monday, if the Democratic Party is to become a Democratic Party, the first job of a new DNC chair is to get the super PAC money out of Democratic primaries. AIPAC and other billionaire-funded super PACs cannot be allowed to select Democratic candidates.
Pause. Let's look at this tweet here from Bernie Sanders and let's dissect the hell out of it, because I noticed something about this tweet. If the Democratic Party is to become a Democratic Party, the first job of a new DNC chair is to get super PAC money out of Democrat primaries. Does everybody notice this? Primaries, not out of the party. AIPAC and other billionaire-funded super PACs cannot be allowed to select the Democratic candidates. Pay close attention to the way that this is worded, because in this tweet, he's not calling for the Democratic Party to remove all corporate money. He said that they need to get super PACs out of the Democratic primaries. Well, Wall Street and billionaires and all the stuff, there are other ways that they can donate without donating through a super PAC. I've shown you before on Open Secrets. And then this part right here, AIPAC and other billionaire-funded super PACs cannot be allowed to select Democratic candidates. He's correct about AIPAC selecting candidates, which Michael's going to go on to disagree with that. But I think what's important here is that it's not just super PAC money. That's what people have to understand. So it's all corporate money. It should be funded by grassroots. It should be grassroots funded the same way that Bernie Sanders' campaign was funded, the same way that the squad members' campaigns were. It should be grassroots funded. No corporate money at all. Also, no money from the military-industrial complex. Now listen to what Michael says, because he's crazy. Watch this.
Democratic candidates, they typically don't. They're not going to put their money into a DNC chair. They typically don't. They're not going to put their money into a DNC chairman's race.
Michael is lying his ass off. They typically do. They typically do select the candidates. They typically do. I played the audio recording for you on the show. If you haven't seen it, watch the video with the thumbnail. It's more recent. The thumbnail says sellouts, and it shows Hakeem Jeffries, and it talks about how the Congressional Black Caucus is selling out to AIPAC. Watch the video, and you'll see where I pointed out where you can hear the audio recording of AIPAC discussing how they start recruiting people to be a part of the Congressional Black Caucus when they're in high school. Not even college, high school. They do select them. They do pay for them. Michael knows this. Michael is paid to lie to you. Before these people get on the air, they're told what they can say and they're told what they can't say. And if they say what they can't say, they might get the boot or demoted. So when we talk about the powers that be, again, who owns MSNBC, but more so, who are the shareholders that are part of MSNBC? It's all controlled by money. So he's paid to lie to you. We have to change the way we say things. I think a number of times we say, oh, they don't know any better, or how can they be this stupid, or how do they not get this? What don't they understand? They do understand it. They do get it. They're not stupid. They're paid to pretend like they are. That's the narrative we got to lead with. They are paid to lie to you.
So again, for me, as the former head of a party, as county chairman and a state chairman, that to me is short-sighted thinking about where the landscape is. One thing that has very little to do with the other. Super PACs and all those guys play in elections and campaigns. That's a different conversation than running for chairman and telling the people who are going to write checks, we don't want you writing checks.
Yeah. Do you see how ridiculous Michael sounds? He really wants us to believe that the DNC chair is someone who's corporate and bought and paid for. Jamie Harrison was also owned by AIPAC. So is Rahm Emanuel. Anyone who sits in that seat, they're going to respond to the Israel lobby. We all know this. He really wants us to believe this. And look at the look on her face. She knows he's lying. Honey, we know. She knows he's lying.
You're absolutely right. With all due respect to Senator Sanders, you might want to join the party if you want to have something.
Well, there is that.
Just on its face, that's a little problematic.
Yeah. Now look at who she is. Former Democratic National Convention Committee CEO. So they bring on someone who's one of their own to push back on the criticism of the DNC. How fitting.
For me. Now, in terms of the money, look, that's not the DNC's issue. You're exactly right, Mr. Chairman, that that kind of money is in local races and state races, and the laws vary by state. Yep. So for the DNC to spend its time and energy on what state A says versus what state B says, versus what candidate C says, just doesn't make any sense to me. There's so much work for the next chair to do. That would not be in the top 10 of things that I'd focus on.
Of course not, because you're bought and paid for too. See, they don't want to focus on the money. They don't want to focus on the money because if you focus on the money, then you have to focus on the lies and the corruption. And then there's their job. Okay, that's their job. Once they start focusing on that, that is it. They're done. So, yes, corporate money needs to be removed from electoral politics, but we all know that is not going to happen. If it does happen, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So Bernie Sanders is wasting his time. If you believe in this, he's wasting your time and energy. And it sounds like to me it's just some other grift for him to try to get you to continue to stay within that party, maybe tease another run at something. Who knows? Who knows? But it's to keep you where you are. You don't see Bernie Sanders pushing you towards an alternative that will get you out of the spot you're in. You see Bernie Sanders keeping you exactly where you are. We can't fall for that. Can't fall for it, fam. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you, Roger, for the super chat. Worker co-ops is the only way to keep production here in the U.S. Notori says next election, Bernie Sanders is going to be telling people to vote for Democrats. Exactly. Thank you. None of your business. Bernie is shill again 20 times. Go back to the planta. I think you meant plantation. Kel says Open Secret says Bernie Sanders and Chris Murphy are both recipients of pro-Israel money. Yes. If you go all the way back, like on Open Secrets, there's a category where you can select That shows you which politicians got pro-Israel money. And even Bernie Sanders did at some point. So it may not have been 2016 or 2020, which I don't think I saw it there. But even at some point in his political career, he did. Thank you, Justin. The term for Bernie is controlled opposition. The DNC has no control over the Green Party, and that's why they're scared to death of the Green Party. It's a good point. Thank you, Miss Delthea, who's been a member for 40 months. You can't be in charge of messaging when your party doesn't have a message. The other guy bad is not a message. Well said. Aunt Shawnee said, that's right. Bernie is not for real. Exactly. Thank you, AR. The empire is crumbling. Yeah. The Oracle says, but they knew when Biden exited that they knew how much time they had. They knew Kamala was weak. They are not serious. Good point. Thank you, Delthea, for this one as well. The Dems lost twice to Trump. Yes, they need a complete overhaul, which they won't do, and for which we all will pay. Thank you. Thanks, Marvin. Dems not honest on loss. Nothing will change. Thank you, Andre. There were no previous presidential candidates murdered in Mexico. There were 37 candidates from various parties murdered, none of them presidential. Thank you, Andre. And thank you, Rosemary. Thanks, Sabby. This is educational, informative, and so entertaining. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. Let's go to Rockfin. Hey, hey, hey. Rock to the fin. It's the rock to the fin. Thank you, Roger. Sabby, John Nichols. I used to see that guy on the late, great Ed Schultz show all the time. He was a labor reporter. Met him once when Obama and Mitt debate came to Hofstra University down the block from me. He was the main guy reporting on the protest in Wisconsin when the newly elected Governor Walker passed a law to strip public sector unions of their funding by forcing them to not require dues, but still have to defend and fight for non-union members, crippling them from operating. That's interesting. This is completely devastated, I think you mean. This completely devastated public sector unions since 2011, but left police and firefighter unions exempt. Interesting. Just yesterday, Wisconsin court ruled that exemption was unconstitutional because you have to have two sets of standards for unions on the same sector. Also, yes, Dems in disarray, loving it. Let's make them lose more. There you go. They're having a breakdown, shakedown. Everybody's dancing to the new age sound. Yeah. Okay, quick announcement, ladies and gentlemen. We are doing so well so far with our RBN Boston chapter fundraiser. One of the things I do is mutual aid. I'm not alone. There's a group of us here in Boston that do that. When I tell you to look for things outside of electoral politics, I encourage you to start locally within your community. That's where you're going to see the most wins. And the final mutual aid event that we're doing for this year is the Winter Wonderland gift donation. Super pumped for the kids. That is Sunday, December 15th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. This will be at the Bruce C. Bowling Building, 2300 Washington Street, Roxbury, Massachusetts. If you're here local, you know what it is. It is what it is. We've been there before. So far, we've raised $1,860 of the $3,000 goal. We're doing pretty good. And then also, again, what are we doing? We are raising money to donate gifts to 50 children in need. These are 50 kids from Orchard Park School in Roxbury. We will also serve a catered lunch for their families. Please help donate what you can. And I just want to give a shout out to everyone who has donated. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And then, also, another thing that I wanted to mention as well about this particular event, huge shout out to Charlie and Kate. Well, everyone a part of the Boston group here, but Kate is also going to make like breakfast gift baskets for the families as well. So yeah, again, these are some of the things that you can do locally, like mutual aid. Next year for 2025, I do plan to start workshops to teach everyone how to start a mutual aid chapter in their area if you're interested in doing that. because I do think it is needed. And this isn't something I came up with on my own. Those of us at RBN, we got this from the Black Panthers. This is something that they used to do, was mutual aid. And I think the new Black Panthers also do this as well. So this is how we help our communities. One of the ways that we organize. So if you want to donate, I will go ahead and put the link there in the chat. That's from Spot Fund. And then I'll pin it to the live stream once we're finished the stream. But yeah. Based. We can go ahead to part 2, the second one, Eric. Yes, thank you so much for that. The Christmas mutual aid event. Super excited for that. Thanks, guys. I just did a whole story about Donald Trump, and here you come, Prince, saying she doesn't really talk about Republicans. Get the fuck out of here, Prince. Get out of here, Prince. Are you serious right now? You either trolling or you weren't really paying the fuck attention. He's even on the fucking thumbnail. Get out of here. Get out of here. I ain't got time for this shit. You must be a liberal. You must be a whiny ass liberal. This ain't Majority Report. I will cuss you out. Thank you. Boy, I tell you. That's right. It's just plain on ignorance or you're a troll. I'm not stupid. I done seen your corny ass before. Whiny liberal. No, I don't, because I know he's trolling. He's a fucking troll. Was quick right after that, was quick to call me a hoe. You see, a troll. Get out of here. Why do you waste your time? Bye. Boy, I tell you. Someone actually DM'd me and told me, this is funny. Someone actually DM'd me and told me that they like to hate watch the show. You don't have anything else to do with your time? What is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with people? Seriously. Wow. And we're doing call-in tonight too. Chris goes, bye, Prince. Maybe you know why doves cry now. Oh my God. Crazy ass motherfuckers. Sorry, excuse the language, but I know a troll when I see one. Anywho, moving on to the next story. This one's a funny one. Funny time. This is also about power and control. Check this out. So right before Biden decided was pushed to drop out of this race, there was this op-ed that was written by George Clooney, and George Clooney goes into all these details and he explains that he was just at an event, a fundraising event with Biden recently. And he said that guy needs to drop out. He should not run. He should not be the nominee. And I told you guys back then, I didn't believe that it was George Clooney who decided to write that article on his own. I believe someone else pushed him to do it. Let's go back and revisit that. That is important because now you're going to see what George Clooney is saying now. Let's go back to that moment, folks. Remember? Listen to this. So when I read this, the first thing I said to myself is, really, George Clooney? Isn't George Clooney really good friends with Joe Biden and Barack Obama? Obviously, I think we know that Joe Biden wouldn't write this or say this about himself. But I also am smart enough to realize that George Clooney may be the face of this op-ed, but I think the writer and the mind of this op-ed is Barack Obama. Think about it for a second. Why would Barack Obama make himself the face of this statement? That would ruin his legacy. And we all know how much Obama seems to care about his legacy. It also wouldn't be good for him in social political circles, which he is still very much a part of. Probably wouldn't be too great for his kids either, even though they're adults. I believe Barack Obama got George Clooney to write this op-ed. It's just a little too personal. All of the senators that I spoke to, not to say George Clooney doesn't know any senators, but this sounds like Barack Obama. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it really sounded like Barack Obama. And the title of that article was George Clooney, I love Joe Biden, but we need a new nominee. So yes, it really did sound like Barack Obama. And now you're going to see George Clooney is now deciding to snitch on Barack Obama. George Clooney is pissed. George Clooney is mad and he's letting everybody hear it. Apparently, you're going to hear how George Clooney feels that he was pushed into this, and also how he, I guess, was feeling Kamala that way, but he was pushed to support Kamala Harris just for her to lose. So George Clooney is snitching on Barack Obama. Guys, you got to hear it. It's hilarious. Here we go.
Hey, Brad, Hollywood star George Clooney is reportedly furious that Barack Obama used him to force President Joe Biden out of the US election. Clooney's newspaper article calling for Biden to stand aside for Kamala Harris was widely credited for changing the course of the election.
You took a big swing, and thank God you hit that ball out because...
Oh, we have to skip through that part. Sorry. And I can bring it back when he's off that part of the stage. But yeah, like, here we go.
Badly for the Democrats. Kamala Harris, of course, was trounced in the polls, but Brad Clooney is now complaining that Obama, who sort of manipulated him into doing the dirty work on his behalf, has now left him to take most of the blame for the election loss.
Okay. So now George Clooney is saying that Barack Obama manipulated him, because the op-ed that was written by George Clooney was saying that we need a new nominee. It shouldn't be Joe Biden. But in nowhere during that op-ed did he say that it should be Kamala Harris. So it sounds like to me that George Clooney got tricked into doing this, and that George Clooney originally just wanted Biden to drop out of the race. But after writing that article and then realizing, oh, okay, the nominee is going to be Kamala Harris, it sounds like George Clooney is like, what the hell did I get myself into? You didn't tell me you were going in that direction, which Barack Obama technically wasn't. Barack Obama wanted an open primary. So did Nancy Pelosi. Joe Biden got pissed that they were pushing him out. So Joe Biden decided to one-up them and say, fine, and publicly announced that he was nominating Kamala Harris. That was his way of getting back at Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi. I told you Barack Obama himself made it clear that he didn't think that Kamala Harris could beat Donald Trump. And well, he was right about that. And I think many of us were right about that too. So let's get back into this. This is interesting.
For the election loss.
Yeah, I mean, that take aged like milk. Obviously, we don't know how Biden would have done, but it is kind of hard to imagine he could have done that much worse than Kamala Harris. I mean, this is
one thing to point out again is the word manipulating. He said he was manipulated.
a historic loss. It is kind of sad in a sense that Obama and other members of the Democratic elite didn't have the courage to say publicly, yes, Joe needs to step down. And instead they outsourced that dirty work to a celebrity actor. But it did need to be said, and I will give him some credit for actually sticking his neck out there and saying, yeah, listen, this guy, he can't cut it, because we all knew it. Everyday Americans knew it, that Biden was no longer up to the job and was going to get trounced by Trump most likely. But I think where this train of thought fell apart was saying, and that's why we need to give Kamala Harris the nomination with no primary. That turned out to be a massive mistake, as anybody who was honest and followed her political career before this and knew she had the charisma of a wet blanket and cackled randomly for no reason would have told you it didn't work out very well.
Well, and this is what I want to say. George Clooney didn't have to write that article. He could have said, no, you know what, Barack, I'm going to sit this one out. And granted, they are apparently friends, right? Like not just an acquaintance, but they are friends. George Clooney could have just said, I really don't want to get involved in this. I'm going to just go ahead and sit this one out, which would make sense. I mean, George Clooney is a celebrity. Does he really need to get involved in this type of thing? That's kind of how I look at it. Just stick to Oceans 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. How many of those you're going to do? Stick to that kind of thing and just do your thing, George. I mean, a lot of us remember you from ER. That's why I first remember George Clooney. Some people said they remember him acting before that, but I remember being introduced to George Clooney was during the show ER. So that's what I knew him from. And then the Ocean 11 movies and stuff like that. And we always kind of said, it's funny, me and my friends kind of said back then that George Clooney was actually pretty good looking for an old dude, And now I look back on it and I was like, I don't even know if he was really that old or if maybe he just got great hair kind of early at that time. But we were just kind of like, you know what? He looked kind of good for an old dude. And then George Clooney went from that and the Oceans movie to being the guy who told Joe Biden that he needed to drop out of this race because he didn't look good at the last fundraiser. And now I guess this is his way of saying, wait a minute, when I said that, I never said or wanted that nominee to be Kamala Harris and never intended for that to be the nominee anyway. I was just saying that someone else needed to step in and not Joe Biden. And I bet you now some of George Clooney's buddies in Hollywood are probably pointing fingers at him and say, man, why you get behind Kamala Harris, man? Look at how she lost. That was terrible. She lost terribly, but he never backed Kamala Harris. He didn't say, let's get Kamala in there. Like Mehdi Hasan did. Mehdi Hasan said, put Kamala Harris in. But George Clooney never said that in the op-ed. He just said that Biden got to go. He ain't got, which he did. Biden was terrible. He's falling apart. So maybe you should just, I don't know. George Clooney could have just told Obama, nah, not going to do it, bruh. Not going to get involved in this one. And that makes me wonder, why did he feel like he had to? And that's the question I think we all need to ask. We talk about power and control. Barack Obama's a pretty powerful dude. He's not president anymore, but I would say he seems to be more powerful now that he's not president than when he was president. Obama be back behind the scenes, pulling strings on things, Maybe one day there'll be a documentary about this. Who knows? But the fact that he's so obsessed with his legacy just makes you wonder, how much has he been involved with? How much has he been doing? But apparently, I guess Barack Obama's power, or the fact that he's a powerful figure, made George Clooney, I guess, somewhat feel like, okay, I should do this because Obama is asking me to do it. So it was like Barack Obama used George Clooney as some sort of control. It was really weird. Obama, write your own damn article. You know what? If you, why couldn't you come forward publicly and say that you didn't want Joe Biden to be in the race? Why can't you come forward and say, I think it's time to turn the page and move forward? Because that wasn't what you were saying in interviews. You said Joe Biden was doing a great job. Why do you need George Clooney, Mr. ER and Ocean's 11 to come speak your words in an op-ed? And it makes me wonder if Obama has done this with others as well.
Yeah, it was blatantly obvious, Brad, that it certainly didn't work out well. Now, look, the bitter banshees, still bitter from Trump's victory at The View, have thought of quite a novel idea, I'll say. I'll let them explain it.
Should Biden pardon his son, Hunter?
I think I would pardon my child. I don't even have kids. I'd bury a body for my child. We just saw Donald Trump. His indictments go away because he's in power. One of the issues
Oh, they got to that part. I didn't want to. That's another story. So I'll get into that later. But getting back to this George Clooney thing, this right here, shocked and betrayed by Barack Obama. So if he feels betrayed, everyone think about this. If he feels betrayed by Barack Obama, then that means that when Obama presented this idea to him, it was presented to him in such a way that George Clooney believed that there was going to be some sort of outcome from it. And it sounds like the outcome that happened is not what George Clooney signed up for. That's what it sounds like to me. But the manipulated part is what I keep focusing on. Because what exactly did Barack Obama say to him? How was he manipulated? Because he still could have said no. He still could have said, I don't really think this is my way. It's just weird. Why would you go to a Hollywood actor to ask them to write an op-ed about Joe Biden and that Joe Biden should leave the space? It's really weird to me. But that's probably the end of that relationship, at least for the short term. You probably won't see Obama hanging out with George Clooney anytime soon. The fact that George Clooney went public with this. And this also says something else. It shows you that the Obama era is over. The Obama, I can walk into a room and I can get everyone to listen to me. That has kind of died down. Because it definitely didn't work for this presidential election. Joe Biden didn't want to listen to him. Nobody wanted to listen to him about Kamala Harris, at least not in the swing states, apparently, because she lost the swing states, which she needed to win at least some of those. She lost every one. So it feels like Barack Obama doesn't seem to have the same type of pull and the same type of finesse that he used to be able to have over the American people. I think a lot of people no longer buy Barack Obama's bullshit and they see right through him. I think that's a big part of it. And I also think a lot of the younger generation who were not alive during the 08, 09 years, who didn't have to go through the housing crisis or whatever, to them, Barack Obama's just some past tense president. And he didn't really have an impact on their lives in any way, shape, form, or other. But he's losing that appeal. And I think this is part of the reason why he continues to say he's concerned about his legacy. You really got to be some type of selfish, conceited person to be so concerned about your legacy and all of this jazz. And his legacy is not ending on a good note. Think about the way people protested against him and spoke out during the rallies, about Gaza, etc. That used to be unheard of for, Barack Obama back in the day, unless that was happening in Congress, right? So the fact that George Clooney was public about this, that shows you Barack Obama is losing his mojo. He doesn't have it anymore. You ain't got it, Jack. You ain't got it no more. And people are seeing through it. I remember when Tavis Smiley criticized Barack Obama and they tried to blacklist Tavis Smiley for that. Dr. Cornel West, too, they tried to blacklist them when they spoke out against Barack Obama and his presidency, because at that time, it wasn't popular to speak out against Barack Obama. Never forget the people who took the blows early on when they spoke out against something and it wasn't popular to do it. But now it is a little bit more popular for you to speak out against Barack Obama. So George Clooney is just basically I don't give a fuck. I'm hurt. I was manipulated. I'm shocked and betrayed. Now you can say these things about Barack Obama and not get as much pushback. Because I don't see people trying to cancel George Clooney. I didn't see any hashtags that said cancel George Clooney. George Clooney's still getting acting roles and all that jazz. But some people were officially canceled or blacklisted for criticizing Barack Obama back in the day. Never forget that. All right. B said he's in the same club with Oprah now. Yeah, there you go. I can see that. I can see it. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Oh boy. Shout out to Jamal Johnson, who's a member for 3 months, says, so then damn, who is a bigger Trojan horse, Obama or Bernie? And starting to feel like all of this is planned out. I hope Cash and Tulsi regulate FBI and CIA. We don't even know if those people are going to be approved. It seems like there's a lot of pushback against both of them, Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel. Kash Patel, by the way, although I agree with him about regulating the FBI and or dismantling the FBI. I agree with that. Kash Patel was also in an interview recently where he said that we should be Israel first. We should prioritize Israel. So keep that in mind. Tulsi Gabbard is the same way. But we don't even know if those two are even going to get approved by Congress. So remember, you can nominate whoever you want for positions in your cabinet, but they still have to be voted on, right? Whatever man says, Sabby ain't having it today. Nope. Chris said, wow, Sabby don't play that. Nope. I sure don't, because I know trolls when I see them. I know them. Thank you, Courtney. Sabby, your hairdo is rocking. Really? Is it? I'm just wearing it. I don't know. It felt a little flat, but I haven't worn it down like this in a while. Like I usually just pull it like half up, half down, or in a bun, that kind of thing. But thank you, Courtney. FM said, no Barry cameo at the blackjack table in Ocean's 14. Womp womp. Oh my God. Thank you, Jasmine. Watch Obama say Pelosi manipulated him next. LOL. Because he went from saying Kamala can't win to backing her. Yeah. He was playing the game. Thank you, Roger. Regarding Clooney, you were too young for Facts of Life, Sab. I remember seeing reruns of Facts of Life with Kim Fields. She was Tootie or Tootsie. I remember seeing some reruns. Maybe I didn't see any episodes that he was on. But N3N said Obama used a Jedi mind trick. Oh, man, poor George. Thank you, Courtney. But this isn't Barack's first time setting up celebrities to fail. Who can forget how he manipulated Steve Harvey into meeting with Trump after he won in 2016? Oh, I forgot about that. That's a good one, Courtney. Thank you, New York Varsity. You're in no position to lecture the public. Thank your God, your agent, and F off. Ricky Gervais. Thanks, Courtney. I was done with Obama when he endorsed Hillary to carry on his legacy after his presidency. Thanks, Well Connected. He probably got George to donate another large lump sum after donating to Joe. That's a good point, Well Connected. Thank you, John. George Clooney is the same guy who killed the Batman franchise in 1997. Oh, no. You didn't like George Clooney? My favorite Batman, I think, is Michael Keaton. After Michael Keaton is Christian Bale. Those are my favorite Batmans. But yeah, the Batman with George Clooney in it, the problem with that one is that I felt like it was too cheesy. Like they basically took let's get all the popular actors in the 90s and put them together in one movie. So you had like Chris O'Donnell, Alicia Silverstone. I think Uma Thurman was also in that one too, right? Wasn't Arnold Schwarzenegger in that one as well? Like they put all these people together, Jim Carrey, but it just kind of felt cheesy compared to the other ones. I love the Christian Bale ones though, because like Dark Knight Rises, I'm like, yeah, Sir Anthony, thank you. So glad that I lived to see the day that Barack and Michelle lost their mojo. Thank you, Annika. Sabby, please let me know your stance on illegal immigration. I've talked about it before on the show. As I've said, you have to have the resources, right? So I said that I think that people should come here legally. That being said, I understand why people are coming here illegally. And a lot of that does have to do with the devastation that has happened in their countries by the U.S. government. So that's another one that I connect to foreign policy. Whereas you wonder why so many people are coming from Venezuela. What did the U.S. government do in Venezuela? What are they still doing in Venezuela? The coups, how they've destroyed these economies. Same things with Haiti. So you have to look at that, right? Like what happened in those countries that's causing people to flee. And then also on top of that, you also have to remember that this is usually their last resort. It's usually their last one. And oftentimes when they come here, they already went to another country first. A lot of people that are in Venezuela, this is another thing Anya Parmpil was explaining. Some of the people that are coming from Venezuela are not Venezuelan. They're coming from Venezuela, but they were already in other countries in South America and they went to Venezuela before they came here. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Thank you, Michael. How about Val Kilmer in Batman Forever? I always forget about that guy. Ouch. Why do I always forget about him? Do you guys forget about Val Kilmer? For some reason, I don't remember him ever. I'm trying to think of another movie he was in and I don't remember. I just don't know. I don't know what it is. It's something about him. He's just not memorable to me. I'm sorry, Val. Damn. That's kind of bad. Isabel said, exactly, Sabby. The USA never does anything to prevent all those immigrants from leaving their countries. Nope. They don't. I wonder what happened to him though. You do too? Jasmine said, yes, I forget about Kilmer. He sucks. Now I kind of want to go back and watch that one. I want to go back and watch that Batman one. And maybe I don't know, but I always forget about that guy. Oh, The Doors. That's right. He was in The Doors. Okay, I remember. Has he done anything else? I don't know. You guys let me know. Let's go to Rockfin, Eric. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Followthemoney.org is for state and local, what Open Secrets is for federal. Please put in the chat and save it. And thank you for this one as well. It was Black millennials that gave the okay for society to knock Obama off his pedestal. Yeah, buddy. Someone mentioned Adam West. Well, he wasn't the Batman like movie franchise. Like he was Batman, the TV show. He was all right. Like I've seen the old like Batman TV shows. It's okay. It's just Michael Keaton's still my favorite. The thing about Batman is like, and I don't want to spend too much time on this, but the thing about Batman is like, you have to be able to nail Bruce Wayne. And so this is why I thought Ben Affleck was a terrible choice for Batman. George Clooney and all his, cuteness and stuff. I feel like he still didn't really nail Bruce Wayne. Christian Bale, I felt like he did. And I felt like Michael Keaton did. So if you can nail Bruce Wayne, you got me. Like that's kind of how I look at it. Anywho, he was in Top Gun? No. See, I even forgot he was in Top Gun. God damn. I remember Tom Cruise and what? Clifford Val Kilmer had throat cancer. I believe that is why he isn't acting. Oh my God, I didn't know. Okay, I guess I have to catch up on these things. I really did not know. Good grief. Damn. Okay, I'll look into that. Sorry, guys. I didn't know Val Kilmer was sick. Oh, he was Iceman. Okay, he was Iceman. All right. Okay, I remember now. Dang. Okay. All right, we have one more story for you guys, and then we will be heading on over to call in. If you haven't had a chance to do so, smash the like button. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share like a Care Bear. And we're diving into our final story, ladies and gentlemen. This is a funny one. People have been pointing towards Sunny Hostin for her ridiculous comments on The View. Right now, we're going to point to Whoopi Goldberg because Whoopi is losing it, okay? Now, we all know that Joe Biden decided to pardon his son, Hunter Biden. They're bringing up the gun charge. They're bringing up, the tax fraud, etc. But I just want to remind you once again that the pardon goes back to 2014, which includes Hunter Biden's business dealings with Burisma in Ukraine. So that was also Joe Biden protecting himself. Never forget that. Okay? Never forget. But Whoopi here on The View is going to all of a sudden, out of nowhere, try to change the definition of the word lie. Anything to protect Joe Biden. Let's get into it.
Yesterday, Biden had a change of heart, granting his son a full pardon on tax evasion and federal gun charges. He released a statement that, quote, says no reasonable person who looks at the facts can reach any other conclusion than Hunter was singled out because he is my son. That is wrong, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Now, I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. So the question is, will people understand? Listen, I get it. I mean, we got a convicted felon as president.
Yes.
It's hard for me to.
Yes.
We're going to pause it there and we're going to dive in. Let's dive into power and control. Why is Whoopi Goldberg so willing to forgive and approve of the pardon for Hunter Biden? And she says we got a convicted president, for convicted felon for president. If it was the other way around, And if it were Donald Trump and he was pardoning his son, would Whoopi still feel the same way? The View was on ABC, correct? Who owns ABC? Who are the shareholders with ABC, the network? Right? So these women that sit around this table, they are also told what they can talk about and what they're not supposed to talk about on this show. There's a reason why many women that were once a part of the show are no longer part of the show, and they all talk about it after they leave. Why is she okay with that? Why is she comfortable with that? Because I would argue, even if Donald Trump did not win, even if, let's say, Donald Trump was not convicted, I would argue that Whoopi would still be okay with this. Because that's what the network wants. Because ABC does lean, Democrat. That's what they want. That's why it's okay for her to be okay with it. Now, this is the same woman who told you in 2020 that she was an independent, that she's not a Democrat or a Republican. Remember that? But as time went by, notice that they all started to lean more towards, there's like one or two Republicans on the panel. But for the most part, most of them lean, are part of the Democratic Party. So pay attention to that. Let her continue.
And I know that who's been asking, are you going to pardon the January 6th folks? Actually, probably not. But I kind of feel like I look at the list of folks that who pardoned during the first term. He granted 237 acts of clemency, 143 pardons, and 94 commutations, including Michael Flynn, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, Charles Kushner, Steve Bannon, George Papadopoulos, Albert Pirro, and Lil Wayne.
So she's talking about Donald Trump, and can you tell there she's reading from a card, right? So that was given to her. She didn't write that down. If she wrote it down, why is she struggling to read it? That was given to her, was put in front of her. That's what she was told to say by the network. Again, who owns the network? So what she does not mention is that some of those people that Donald Trump pardoned were Black people. They were Black prisoners like Angela Stanton. Now, again, you may not agree with some of these people politically, but Donald Trump pardoned some of the Black prisoners. Why didn't Joe Biden do that? And this was my thing. A lot of people said, well, Sabby, if it's my kid, I would pardon my kid too. Okay. But you didn't write a crime bill. You didn't write a crime bill that targeted Black men, taking them out of the home and giving them harsher punishment for drugs. You didn't write that. There were a number of people that were affected by Joe Biden's crime bills. These people are still alive today. They haven't been pardoned. Joe Biden has been in office all this time. Why didn't he try to right it wrong? Because he don't give a damn. So if you think that your son deserves a second chance, if you think that Hunter Biden should be forgiven, why can't Joe Biden forgive all the people that were victims of his crime bills? Because I don't give a damn what you say. Nobody, number one, you shouldn't go to jail for drugs. I'm a firm believer in what you put in your body is your business. I'm not trying to tell you what to eat. I'm not trying to tell you what to consume. That is your business. If you look at a country like Portugal, you'll see what happened after they decriminalized drugs. Their crime rate, down. So that's that. But if you are willing to give your son a chance, why aren't you willing to pardon those people who still have those records, who served 10, 11, 20 years for drugs, for drug possession? That's righting a wrong. Joe Biden is not trying to right no damn wrong, but for himself and his son. This is not just about tax fraud. This is not just about a gun possession. This goes back to 2014, which is 10 years ago, which would include Hunter Biden's involvement with Burisma in Ukraine. This is Joe Biden also protecting him damn self. Now, they're not going to tell you that. I'm telling you this because The View is not going to tell you that. Trump pardoned people. Yes, he did. Do I agree with all those pardons? No, I don't. But Donald Trump also pardoned black people. Angela Stanton King still says till this day that it changed her life. Why didn't Joe Biden do that? Because I don't give a damn about these other people. Like, I don't give a damn about Michael Flynn and Steve Bannon and all that. I don't give a damn about these people. Why didn't Joe Biden pardon black people that his legislation put there? Why not? Yes, Fatima, Biden's crime bill ruined families. Exactly. They took, do you guys understand? A lot of people, a lot of liberals, they'll bring up Reagan and they'll say, well, Reagan's war on drugs, disrupted the black family, took the black man out the home. Yeah, but you know what else was messed up too? What else did that? It was the crime bill. It was the crime bill. If you got arrested for drugs under Joe Biden's crime bill, and if let's say your sentence was 10 years, 10, 11, 12 years, and your kid was 5, you missed all that. You missed all that. By the time you got out, they were about to graduate from high school. So why didn't he right that wrong for those people? He's out here right now. He just gave a speech that said that he's given $1 billion something to Africa, giving billions to Africa to help people in Africa. They willing to help anybody but us. This is what I want you to see. They'll help any other country. Zelensky get more money for Ukraine. They're willing to help Israel. They're willing to help anybody else but us. Let's continue.
Everybody.
I forgot about Lil Wayne.
Yeah. Lil Wayne. So it is a president's prerogative. People can say, oh, why are you doing that? But that's what presidents do every time. They do it every time they pardon somebody. So I'm not sure why the pearl clutching is happening now, except that that's what folks want to do. But it seems kind of foolish. You kind of knew he was going to do it, given all that's happened. But maybe I'm just kooky.
So I see.
The pearl clutching is happening because he said that he wouldn't do it. He said that he would follow the rule of the law. And from what I read earlier today, it was his wife, Jill Biden, that apparently pushed him into this. And again, the mothers and stuff, they're going to try to protect the kids and all that kind of stuff. I get it. But what I am saying is that other people that Joe Biden could have given a second chance to, he has not given it to. Hunter Biden came from a privileged family where he had every opportunity to be on the right path in life. He had the resources, he had the networks, everything that he needed. I sat there and I watched Joe Biden stand there on the Senate floor and say the things that he said about black people, that he didn't care what type of environment that they grew up in. He wanted them off the street and in jail. But apparently that doesn't apply to his son. And this is the problem that I have with this. Now, Whoopi, you're one of the black people on the table. Why doesn't Whoopi bring up anything about, well, I would appreciate it if he pardoned those that were part of the crime bill. She doesn't bring it up because that's not what she's paid to say. These people are puppets. They work for a network that has shareholders that want them to deliver a certain message that they feel is acceptable to the donor class. So she's not going to throw Joe Biden under the bus. Representation gone wrong?
See this one a little bit differently, and some of you know this, but I grew up with an immediate family member who was in and out of jail for addiction-related offenses when I was growing up, and now a decade later, clean, have their life together, serve their time, are still dealing with the consequences. Inability to vote at time, paying restitution, working to get your record expunged, not being able to be eligible for certain employment. most Americans, if they face consequences for actions that they took, they're going to have to face them. And nobody powerful and politically connected is going to come sweep in and save them. And I think, this feeds the notion to a lot of this country that there's simply a different set of rules for folks in power. And when we sit here and we say a lot like, well, Donald Trump did X, Y, and Z, and how did he get elected? Because to a lot of this country, it just becomes noise. They think that if you commit crimes and somebody powerful and connected in D.C., right, left, center, Biden, Trump, you're going to be able to get away with it if you have someone on your side. And that's not how it is for everyday folks. Secondly, I take issue with lying about it. I wanted to ask him here when he came on The View, but the thought was he said so many times he wasn't going to pardon him. That to me is lying to the public. I felt bad for Karine Jean-Pierre that she repeatedly had to say that he wasn't going to pardon him. This is why people don't trust Washington. That's why they don't trust politicians. And I know a lot of us like Joe Biden, but I find it disappointing and bad for our institutions.
Well, look.
Let me pause here for a second. She just told you that she wanted to ask him about that when he came on the show. Why didn't she get a chance to ask that question? Why didn't she get a chance to really dive into that? Because that's not what the producers wanted her to do. The producers don't go there. We got to cut to commercial. We got to cut. Don't go there. They didn't want her to do that. And she said, I feel bad for Karine Jean-Pierre. Don't. She knows what she's doing when she signs up for that job. Again, she is paid to lie. The press secretary is a paid liar. They're just supposed to protect the president at all costs. They're never going to get out there and throw the president under the bus, even when the president is in the wrong. But he did lie. But wait till you hear what Whoopi says about the lie.
Look, I think sometimes, unfortunately, in this country, there are two sets of justice, right? I, too, have many family members convicted of felonies, marijuana, related to marijuana. They haven't been able to get positions in certain places. They haven't even been able to get housing in certain places. When I applied to be a federal prosecutor, there was a checkbox. If you're a felon, explain the circumstances, and you were more than likely not to get that. Now, as Whoopi said, that we have a convicted felon in the White House, those questions should not be asked of anyone, anytime, anywhere. Well, that is the bottom line. That policy needs to be changed.
First of all, let's call out the BS that Sonny just did, right? So Sonny said she has many family members that have been a part of the criminal justice system. Whatever. I'm not going to judge her family. I don't know. It is what it is. But I think it's interesting that she went down that road and she said it's not fair. They don't get a fair shake. And she talked about marijuana, but she doesn't mention Joe Biden's crime bills. Not once. Everybody see how this game is played. That's how you get to sit there on The View, ladies and gentlemen. You talk about the problems, but you don't go down that rabbit hole. You don't explain why these things are happening. You just say, well, I got family members that also were incarcerated and the justice system wasn't fair to them at all. Some of them got charges because of marijuana. Doesn't mention Joe Biden's crime bills once. That's how you get to sit in that seat. How you go down that lane and you can't even bring that up. So this show also tries to control the narrative. The power and control here, the power is the shareholders who own ABC. The control is these commentators that you see on the show. They control a narrative. That's what they're doing. Because if you didn't know about Joe Biden's crime bills, which some people didn't when he was running 2020, they were like, never knew about this. If you didn't know about that, and Sonny just explained what she explained to you, you don't know that Joe Biden was responsible for those harsher sentences around drug paraphernalia. You don't know that. And they want to make sure you don't know that. They don't want to bring it up.
The other thing is, Trump did escape responsibility for all his crimes. He's nominating Charles Kushner, who he pardoned, as you mentioned, as the ambassador to France. Do you know what a nice, cushy job that is that any felon would like? And, so pleased with the hypocritical pearl clutching by this country. Eric Holder, I think, said it really well.
So notice how she's using the word felon again. How she's throwing around that word. Now, this woman just told you that she has many family members that have been incarcerated, that have been a part of the system. But look at how she says the word felon. Look at how she uses that word in such a dirt. Does that sound like someone to you that has many family members that are part of the system and thinks that they got an unfair shake? She was a prosecutor. Don't forget that.
No U.S. attorney would have charged this case given the underlying facts that have been investigated for 5 years. Less than, get this, 0.09% of people are indicted, prosecuted, charged, and found guilty of lying on a gun form. The only reason that Hunter Biden was gone after and charged, indicted, and found guilty was because his name wasn't Joe Smith, it was Hunter Biden. And that's the truth of it. You've got Eric Holder saying it, you've got former prosecutors like myself saying it. So,
Why didn't he admit it earlier?
Wait. Eric Holder, wow, that's someone to throw up. So yeah, is there political motivation? Absolutely. Like, was this politically motivated? Yes, just like it was political motivation when the state of New York went after Donald Trump. That was the Democratic Party trying to take him down so that he wouldn't run again or could get out of this race, etc. Yeah, both of these have been politically motivated. But let's be very clear. This is not just about lying on a motherfucking gum form. You need to get that through your, get it through your head, Sonny, because she knows better. I want everyone to wake up. That is not what this is about. That is probably the one of the least important things that you can take away from this. This is about protecting Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine. If it was just about the gun charge, why does it go all the way back to 2014? The pardon goes back to 2014. That's what it's really about. And Sonny isn't going to say that because that would be her job. She would lose her seat after that. There would be no more Sonny Hostin on The View.
I think one of the reasons why he didn't admit it earlier was because he didn't know that the felon in chief would become the next president.
Let me let Anna speak. So, I actually talked to Joe Biden about this. Mm-hmm. When he was on the show, I told him I hoped he pardoned Hunter.
I remember. You did.
I went to speak at the Biden Institute in Delaware like a month later. And we talked on the phone, and I told him I hoped he pardoned Hunter. I left him a handwritten note at his desk at the University of Delaware and told him I hoped he pardoned Hunter. And the reason I thought it was important is because I wanted him to hear from people who support him and respect him, which I do, that some of us, I'd say most of us, think it's okay for him to pardon Hunter because of what you just said, that so many of the people who committed this crime do not get prosecuted. Imagine the guilt.
Pause. So Anna Navarro took it upon herself to tell Joe Biden multiple times that she saw him, that he needed to make sure that he pardoned his son. Okay. Why didn't Anna Navarro use that time that she was with Joe Biden and tell him that he needed to pardon the victims of his crime bill? Why not? Why not? You saw him that many times? And your first thought is pardon your son, not pardon the people who are victims of the crime bill? I wonder why, Anna Navarro. I wonder why. There were a number of people. We can go through the list. You want to talk about people that also should be pardoned? Pardon Assata Shakur. Pardon Lynn Peltier. Pardon Julian Assange. Pardon those people. Fuck Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden had everything handed to him. Everything. He chose to screw his life up. The people that Joe Biden punished with his crime bills didn't get a second chance. They don't have a pardon. So the way that I see this is, how is it that your sole focus, Anna, happens to be with Hunter, who you probably know pretty well, if I would imagine, but not the people who don't have the resources to get freed from the crime under Joe Biden's crime bill? Why don't you have that same type of energy and sympathy towards the people that were punished harshly under Joe Biden's crime bill? Why aren't you trying to push that? Because they don't give a damn about those poor people. They don't give a damn about those people. They're not important to them. What a mess.
That Joe Biden has to live with, thinking that his son, his only surviving son, is getting prosecuted because he is his son. I want to say that Charlie Kushner, the guy, Jared's dad, who was pardoned by Trump, he was convicted of witness tampering, among many other things. And Chris,
looking at a system that seems like it only benefits the people who are in power.
I'm going to say,
what precedent does that set?
Well, here's what it says. It's a precedent for all of us to open our eyes because we've elected someone who is in a similar situation, who didn't have a drug problem, who knew what he was doing, who clearly stood and said, I can do this. And he did.
How do you know what the defense that they have for Hunter Biden? So hold up. How do you know that Hunter Biden didn't know what he was doing? Were you there? Were you there? So how do you know? Why are you so quick to defend this man? Because that's what the network wants you to do. That's what they want you to do. Defend Joe Biden at all cost.
So I think for many, many reasons, this is very different than any other situation that we have ever dealt with. Because when we're talking about who gets a pardon and who doesn't get a pardon, this man, I think Biden had no intentions of pardoning Hunter. And I think the more stuff that went down, I think he said, well, why am I busting my behind to stay straight and do this when nobody else is, when no one else is doing it?
I think he thought he was going to win, and I just wish he would have been honest with the public.
He said he wasn't going to pardon him even after he lost. But I think what happened in the meantime that we have to, be cognizant of is that Donald Trump campaigned on retribution, vindictiveness, and vengeance.
He's done it for 4 years.
He has appointed people who to law enforcement positions that have said we are here for retribution and vindictiveness. So.
But I thought you guys continued to say that two wrongs don't make a right. I thought you guys continued to say that. Now it appears you're okay with two wrongs, making a right. Now that's okay. I don't think these women I'll say this. Joe Biden lied. It just is what he lied. When he said he wasn't going to pardon his son and then he did, that's a lie. You are not changing the definition of the word lie. Okay. That is a lie. It is what it is. I sincerely hope younger girls today, I sincerely hope that young women today do not sincerely look towards these women as some sort of role model. I sincerely hope that young girls today do not aspire to be like these women. Because the number of lies that I have heard these women tell on this show, especially mainly when it comes to politics, it's actually embarrassing. And you want to talk about woman empowerment? You want to talk about girl power, as people say? What good is having representation if you're constantly being told what to say, when to say it, and you can't be unfiltered? What good is having representation if you're just going to be a part of the status quo anyway? What good is that? When Barbara Walters started this show, I actually thought she had something here. Now, I remember when the show first started and it was not a political show. That changed later on throughout the years. I thought she had something here. But along the way, I could see it seemed like Barbara might have left her touch on the show a little bit and then it went away. She used to be at the table with them. It was different women back then. But I look at the show today and I really do feel like the number of lies they tell people about politics. I don't care about the celebrity entertainment stuff that they tell. I'm talking about the politics. The number of lies that they tell people. And I sincerely hope that young women, especially those that are resourceful, that will Google and look up information, I sincerely hope they are not falling for these women's line of bullshit. I sincerely hope that women will aspire to be better than these women on The View, because it is pathetic and it is sad. I don't know what happened after Barbara, decided not to be involved with the show anymore. But the show was not this way in the beginning. And what you think you were going to get, you're not getting. The way that they can just sit here and basically like, oh, it wasn't really a lie. It was a lie. Just admit that and keep it moving. And I would like to say, I would like to see Whoopi, Sonny, and Anna Navarro. I'd like to see you get this damn passionately about the people who were punished under his crime bill. I'd like to see that happen. Get passionate about that. Because let's be real. If the crime bill was written under Donald Trump, oh, they would have been hella passionate about it. Hella passionate. But what it shows you is that, again, those who have the power have a sense of control. So while they're the ones sitting at the table, they don't own the network. The people who own the network and the shareholders, they're the ones that have the real power. And they control them. But in turn, for the people who watch this show, the hosts of The View are controlling you by controlling the narrative. These people are liars. And for them to sit there and I just can't. How can you go from 1 minute, Sonny Hostin of all people, where you want to advocate for Black people that have been punished harshly by the system? 1 minute, you all about that. But you sit up here and you bring up the fact that you have multiple people in the family that have been affected by the system, some charged with marijuana charges, and they have had to struggle because of it. But you don't even mention Joe Biden's crime bill, and the discussion is about Joe Biden pardoning his damn son. It is embarrassing. So you can stand there, and here's the thing about the representation. Here's the thing about the representation, because look, Whoopi, where are we at? I'm trying to get the Whoopi. Here we go. Whoopi, you don't represent me. You don't represent me. Whoopi represents the interests of Whoopi. And if that includes lying, it includes lying. How you sit there and you read off the damn card, you don't even know what you're reading. It was put in front of you. It was given to you. You don't even know. You're a puppet. You're a pawn. And my message to young women out there today is I sincerely hope you ain't got to look up to me, but damn sure don't look up to these women. These women have gotten where they are because they learned how to play the game and they go along with it, and they have gotten accustomed to a certain style of living, a certain lifestyle, and they are not going to let that go. These women up here caping harder for Hunter Biden than they were for all the people that have been killed in Gaza. They care more about Hunter Biden than they do about a damn genocide. Let that sink in. What a mess. What a mess. We are going to do call in tonight. I have one more. I'm sorry. I wanted to show you this as well. I want to show you someone who said this in a different way. And that's Shermichael. Shermichael, I don't agree with him on everything policy wise, but I do feel like he tends to be a little bit more measured. Listen to how he responded to this.
Democrats portrayed the president as this great arbiter of morality and truth. They said that he somehow was a better standard bearer for protecting norms and the institutions of our country, and yet that wasn't true. They lied. You can go all the way back to 2022 when they were asked this question, and the White House continuously, consecutively lied over and over and over again. They could have simply said, to MJ's point, to Chuck's point, the president isn't going to put his thumb on the scales of justice. He's going to wait. He hasn't made a decision yet. Most people would have expected that. They would have respected that. I think most people, to your point, Chuck, believe if it was my child, I probably would have done the same thing. That's not the issue, Jake. The question here, the burden on the White House, I would argue, is the continuous lies. You said that you were better than this other guy. You criticized the other guy for all of these things, and now your DOJ is committing witch hunts, and this is now politicized. Well, you appointed Merrick Garland. You can't blame Republicans for that. And I can only imagine, as I've talked to a lot of Republicans, if this were Donald Trump, and I know people are going to give him a lot of criticism for the pardons he's already given, but if this were him and Don Jr. or Eric Trump or Ivanka, I can only imagine what the headlines would have been. And I will say, if you're Democrats and you're trying to walk this straight line that we're somehow better than Republicans because we care more about the future and state of this democracy, I think that's trash now. No one believes it. No one believes they've lost all credibility for the facade they portrayed for several years.
You guys sat up there, and he's got a point, because people sat up there for over a year that said nobody is above the law. Nobody's above the law when it came to Donald Trump. But the moment it comes to Joe Biden, he's above the law. That's why people making fun of you. This person here really put the nail on the head. I'm not going to read the entire article, but there's one paragraph I want to show you. Where's the pardon for thousands of black men locked up for what Hunter did? That is Darby O'Mara. Where is the pardon for thousands of black men locked up for what Hunter did? To be honest, I don't care that President pardoned his son. I never believed him when he said that he wouldn't do it. And if I were in his position and Hunter was my son, I'd at least consider doing the same. What I do care about, however, is the fact that President Biden was the author of the laws that locked up many black men for doing some of the same crimes that Hunter was just pardoned for. So where's the movement for that? Where's the movement to get Biden to pardon those people? The people that he called predators in that Senate floor speech. All right. We are going to do call in. Eric, I think we still got a couple super chats, and then I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be back and we'll do call in. Hey, hey, hey.
There we go. Get the mic on. We'll get the mic in place. All right. So I hope everyone's well on this fine back at it Tuesday after the holidays. This is the part of the show where we give Sabrina a little break, and then we'll be setting up the Zoom Hangout room. It's actually not even created yet, and so that's part of why we don't have the link for you. But we'll be getting you the link. Hey, NY Varsity Sports Jason. I think we'll probably see him in the Zoom Hangout that we also call in, because it used to be called call in. There we go. Set up things here. And while we're doing this break, we'll go through some of these super chats. Let's see what we got. Excuse me. All right. Thanks for the super chat. John McKinney. You said, my favorite Batman is Kevin Conroy, R.I.P., and Mark Hamill is my favorite Joker. Batman Mask of the Phantoms is my favorite Batman movie. Thanks for that. And Justin B said, the Val Kilmer movie that you must see is a real genius. Thanks for that, Justin. And thanks for the super chat, DeAndre, who says, Obama better stick to his Netflix documentary narrations. He's no political kingmaker. Mm-hmm. I mean, one thing that, that makes me think of is that while I'm sure, Barack Obama and some other high-level Democrats are unhappy that it didn't work out and they didn't get in power, it's still, they're going to be okay. They're fine. And Obama's going to be out, on his Martha's Vineyard mansion, and he's going to be rich and disconnected and living life. And it's the same for the high level Democrats and like a Nancy Pelosi and there's a camp, especially a Kamala camp, that would like to have won and had a taste of that power for a while. But I think the best way to look at all this stuff is that both these parties are really the same. I think we should be very overt about always calling them the uniparty or the duopoly. You know, they represent the billionaire interests. They don't represent ours. And all this stuff about whether one wins or the other wins, it's really theater to distract us from, you know, where the real power is. And I think it's really important to always kind of come back to that. I almost get a little bit antsy when there's too much talk about the Republican and Democratic parties as if they are like separate oppositional institutions, because I just don't think we should view them this way. Thanks for the super chat, Sparky, who says, "Love you, Sabby, great work." And thanks also for this one, MY Varsity Sports. I never thought TDS was real, Trump derangement syndrome. But to take what Hunter did and what Hunter did to cover him and make it about Trump, there is no cure. And yeah, I mean, and I would say, you know, I would frame Trump derangement syndrome as part of the narrative, right? Narrative management. And thanks for this super chat, Sparky. Go and Allah, fight the power. And thanks, Zoe, for being a member for 2 months. Who says, the crime bill accelerated stop and frisk. My brother at 16 was wrongfully arrested for being in a park late with a friend near the roach of a blunt. Yeah, and that's, you know, definitely like a big part of this was just how many people were damaged by what Biden and the rest of them did. We should never forget that, of course. Thanks, Baby Ethernet, who says, Biden is a meandering career sociopath. Yeah, there's the latest one of him meandering into the jungle. Thanks for the super sticker, Glorious Sabri. Appreciate it. And thanks for the super chat, Egg, with the very chromy avatar that we like. He says, we asked Dems to pardon our truth tellers and truth arbiters of freedom. They heard us and pardoned Hunter Biden and Jesse Smollett's lying ass. There you go. Yeah, it's like the joke. You ordered pardoning Assange and Pelletier. Okay, how about a Hunter Biden? This was like their return offer. And thanks for this super chat. Janice says, did BW make up for the show as a fill-in for her regular artist? She was a B, abusing everyone. I was talking about Barbara Walters. Did Barbara Walters make up for the show as a fill-in for a regular artist? She was a B, abusing everyone she thought beneath her, turned down work for her after. All right. And thanks, Cynical, for being a member for 6 months. And their message is, I was never a fan of Batman. He was a personification of the U.S., a billionaire beating up on mentally ill people instead of helping them out. I mean, yeah, I mean, that is, you know, when you start kind of looking at and getting into these kind of superhero movies and themes, and some of that can be pretty problematic. Sometimes it gets into propaganda. That's an interesting point there. We can talk about it on Hangout if you want. And thanks, Roger, for this tipped comment on the Rockman. Roger says he's referring to the person who was yakking at Sabby in the chat earlier. Prince must be one of the former MSNBC viewers that Crystal Ball warned us about that are seeking refuge in YouTube media because Joe Scarborough and the network let them down. Thanks for that one. And yeah, I mean, the other thing I want to hit on is that when we're like, I have the thing, let me even show it, like the old MCDS, right? And it stands for, let's go to my favorite website, and maybe, hopefully yours, 11demands.org. But one of the things I got in here is, I gotta get this mouse over here. There we go. Is, yes, MCDS, Money Corruption Demand Solutions. And what I wanted to hit on is getting to the D part. right? The demands part, because I think it's really important. It's kind of like you want to lead people through, and you definitely have to hit, the money and corruption and hit it hard. And even a lot on the left, like, don't even get there. And then I think if you get into that next step, the demands, then I think you kind of lead people into having some idea of how it can get better. And what I'm proposing as far as how it can get better is that if we have a critical mass of people, making real demand. So when you talk about money and corruption, right, the key basic demand is to get the big money out, to get the corruption out. And if we can get enough people to there, you have then becomes the potential for change. Like people say, well, you got these demands and you got these things. How are you going to change anything? And I'm saying, and I will tend to respond, well, in a basic sense, the way it is right now, you're right. It's not happening. But how it can happen is if we get enough people, as in literally millions, having a clear set of demands, getting into the streets, demanding these things and these solutions, that's when real change becomes possible. And I think it's the job of all of us, whether you're a YouTube host or you're just someone in the audience, to have clear demands and to get other people thinking that way. That's what I'm shooting for.
That's
I'm
right.
talking about MCDS. All right.
And we can talk about it over on Sabby After Dark. This is the call-in part of the show. The link to that, if you're new, is pinned to the top of the YouTube live chat. So you can see that there. And there's a passcode as well. What I do is I go ahead and open the room while I'm on the show to make sure everybody gets in, which hasn't been a problem as of recent, actually. So you just click on that link. People who are not new to the show, they already know how to do this, but you click on that, it should let you in. The passcode also, if you need it, it looks like people are already getting in. We just ask that you mute when you enter the room. And if you want to speak, what you do is at the bottom where it says reactions, and then next to reactions is raise hand. You click on raise hand, and that's how you raise your hand. So I know to call on you. I know you want to speak. So that's how you do that. And we just ask everybody to mute when you enter. And you can also get it. Eric, do you have the link?
Just setting up now and checking. Let's see.
Because right when we end the stream, the live chat isn't readily available right away. So Eric puts the Zoom link and the passcode on sabbysabs2.com. So if you go to that, you can also get the link to the Zoom call and the passcode. I just want to make sure everybody, just ask everybody, please mute when you enter. Okay, good. All right. I think we're ready to head on over there. You think so?
Check if things are weird.
And then again, yeah.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, you can also get it here, guys, at sabbysabs2.com. So that's also where you can get the Zoom link and all that stuff. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and head on over there where you can call in and we can chat about tonight's stories, etc. That is it for me tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.